Chapter 1051. I'm Not Dead. Qi Shanhai was completely disheartened after falling into the spatial rift. He thought that he was dead for sure. However, he actually passed through the spatial crack unscathed and fell down a cliff. There are rare and stable spatial rifts in the spatial rift. I'm so lucky to pass through a stable spatial rift? Qi Shanhai laughed. I'm so lucky. Qi Shanhai was overjoyed when he looked around. This is a place that has never been explored before. There must be an ancient cave abode here. Qi Shanhai walked along the cliff. Soon, he saw an ancient and exquisite cave abode. Golden Essence Mountain, First Heaven Mansion? In front of the cave abode, there was a huge stone tablet engraved with 6 shining words. Even though millions of years had passed and the spiritual energy had dissipated greatly. However, these words still exuded a vast and majestic aura that made one tremble. An ancient, immortal abode. It must be at least the abode of an immortal soul expert. Qi Shanhai was so excited that his body trembled. However, he also knew that with his inferior grade Jin Dan cultivation, there was no way he could get his hands on this cave abode. After all, ancient restrictions were no joke. One careless mistake and he would die. Looks like I can only tell Grandpa and let him explore this cave abode. Qi Shanhai was very depressed that he had returned empty-handed from a treasure mountain. Even if he told the elders in his family to search for the treasure, how could it compare to him taking it all for himself? Feeling depressed, Qi Shanhai could only turn around and leave. Buzz, at this moment, a trembling sound could be heard. Behind the huge stone tablet, a pale light with a hint of red shot into the sky. A powerful force surged out. Could it be that the restriction has been activated? Qi Shanhai was so scared that his face turned pale and his legs turned to jelly. Clang! The light instantly landed in front of Qi Shanhai. With the sound of a sword, the light faded and turned into a snow-white 3-foot-long bone sword covered in jagged teeth. Clang! 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 The sound of the sword seemed to be calling out to Qi Shanhai. Qi Shanhai was shocked and then overjoyed. The treasure recognizes its master. This is the treasure recognizing its master. Ha 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 ha. I'm really lucky. One who survives a great disaster is destined for good fortune in the future. In the process of treasure hunting in the Western Wasteland, there had indeed been many instances where magic treasures had taken the initiative to recognize their masters. This was because the magical treasures that had been left behind in the cave for countless years had no master to refine them. They could only rely on themselves to breathe in and out vital energy, and even maintaining their own spirituality was extremely difficult. It wasn't easy for him to encounter a cultivator, so he naturally had to find a way to follow him out. Taking the initiative to recognize him as its master was a very good choice. Even if the master couldn't do it, he could just wait for the master to die and find another master. It was very common for magic treasures to change owners several times. Ha 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 ha. I, Qi Shanhai, can finally hold my head high. Grabbing the white bone sword, Qi Shanhai laughed out loud when he saw the white bone sword releasing the core of the restriction and allowing him to imprint his soul imprint on it. With this magical longsword, even if it hadn't been refined yet, after mastering the central restriction, it would still be able to exert 40 to 50% of its power. A Dharma treasure was equivalent to an Essence Soul Venerable. An Essence Soul Venerable at the 4th or 5th level of strength was enough to dominate the Jin Dan world. Old Ghost Money Toad, I won't let you get away with this. Qi Shanhai raised the white bone sword and left through the tear in the void. He returned to the edge of the western wilderness. This fellow, he didn't even try to hide his strength? He just charged out with his Dharma treasure? Li Yu was slightly surprised by Qi Shanhai's reaction. However, this was more suitable for him to use as bait. Hence, thanks to Li Yu's discreet actions, another sect's disciple happened to witness Qi Shanhai seeking revenge on Old Ghost Money Toad. Qi Shanhai swung his sword in high spirits and killed Old Ghost Money Toad. The 6 paths of reincarnation? That white bone sword has the 6 paths of reincarnation? Searching for the 6 paths of reincarnation had been a public mission of the Nether sect for many years. Even if they provided information, they would be handsomely rewarded. Hence, this Nether sect disciple immediately relayed the news back to his sect. You found information about the 6 paths of reincarnation? The edge of the western wilderness? It's suspected to be a bone sword unearthed from an ancient cave abode that carries the 6 paths of reincarnation? A tossed stone stirred up 1,000 ripples. The Nether sect's nascent divinity realm experts could no longer sit still. Searching for the 6 paths of reincarnation has been the Nether sect's long-cherished wish for many years. We can't afford to lose this. The Yama Emperor and the Nether Emperor, the 2 nascent divinity realm experts, made their way to the western wilderness. Based on the information provided by the disciple, the 2 of them quickly found Qi Shanhai. Ha 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 ha. I'm blessed by the heavens. A Dharma treasure came to me and acknowledged me as its master. With the power of this Dharma treasure, who in the Jin Dan world is a match for me? Qi Shanhai raised the white bone blood devourer sword and laughed as he showed it off to a group of female cultivators. Tianji City in the western wilderness. This city was built on the edge of the western wilderness. It was the base of the Rogue Cultivators Alliance. As the grandson of the Rogue Cultivators Alliance's elder, Qi Changshan, Qi Shanhai was even more brazen in the Rogue Cultivators Alliance's territory. As for the cave abode that could not be opened yet, Qi Shanhai planned to open it after refining the Dharma treasure and take everything for himself. At this moment, the Yama Emperor and the Nether Emperor arrived. As expected, there's the 6 paths of reincarnation Qi. When they saw the white bone sword in Qi Shanhai's hand, the Yama Emperor and the Nether Emperor exchanged a look and nodded with a smile. With this Dharma treasure, I can do whatever I want. Qi Shanhai was still bragging when he suddenly felt a shadow above his head. A pitch-black nether ghost claw descended from the skies and grabbed him. Who are you? How dare you attack me? My grandfather is Qi Changshan, the nascent divinity realm cultivator of the Rogue Cultivators Alliance. Before he could finish his sentence, Qi Shanhai felt his soul boil violently. It was as if something was madly stirring up his soul. Qi Shanhai's soul shook violently. His eyes rolled back and he fainted instantly. Golden Essence Mountain, First Heaven Mansion. A stable void tear that leads to the cave abode. The Nether sect was straightforward in their actions. How could the Yama Emperor, who had undergone 2 heavenly tribulations, be afraid of a mere nascent divinity realm cultivator? After grabbing Qi Shanhai, he immediately used a soul-searching technique to search for the information he needed. That's the cave abode of an ancient gold-armored heavenly lord. It must contain the 6 paths of reincarnation. After wiping away Qi Shanhai's memory, Yen Luo and the Emperor of the Underworld flew towards the western wasteland, ignoring the screams of the group of female cultivators. Following the stable void tear that Qi Shanhai discovered, the 2 of them traveled through the void and arrived at the entrance of the cave abode. It really is the cave abode of a gold-armored heavenly lord. When they saw the cave abode and sensed its aura, the Yama Emperor and the Nether Emperor were delighted. Bzzzt. Bzzzt. They had just arrived at the entrance of the cave abode and were about to study the cave abode's restrictions when they suddenly heard a buzzing sound. A vast and majestic reincarnation power surged out of the cave abode. The Deva-human path, the human path, the hell path, the hungry ghost path, the Azura path, and the animal path. 6 light wheels that exuded boundless mysteries appeared above the cave abode. The light wheels intersected and spun continuously. 6 paths of reincarnation. The Yama Emperor and the Nether Emperor exclaimed when they sensed the aura. This was truly a peerless opportunity. Chapter 1052. The long-cherished wish of the Nether sect is right before our eyes. The Yama Emperor and the Nether God looked at each other and nodded solemnly. We must obtain the 6 paths of reincarnation at all costs. The Nether sect was a sect based on the 9 underworlds. Without the 6 paths of reincarnation, they could not even survive the 3rd tribulation of the Yang God, let alone become a heavenly immortal. This was related to their lives and the development of their sect. The Yama Emperor and the Nether God were prepared to lose all their Dharma treasures. Ghost Banner. He waved his hand and released a long banner filled with ghost chi. He waved it at the cave abode's restriction. The golden-armored Heavenly Lord was a heavenly immortal corpse Tao elite. If it were not for the fact that millions of years had passed and the restriction's power had weakened, the Yama Emperor and the Nether God would not have dared to attack it. However, if they were willing to pay the price and break through the restriction, they would have a chance to obtain the 6 paths of reincarnation. The 2 of them activated their Dharma treasures and attacked with all their might. It took them 6 hours to break through the restriction at the entrance. We did it. Let's go. They activated their Dharma treasures to protect themselves and charged into the cave abode. Then, they fought all the way and went through all kinds of hardships. They even lost 2 of their Dharma treasures. The Nether God lost an arm and the Yama Emperor had a huge wound on his back. The 2 of them finally arrived at the main hall of the cave abode. A huge seal floated in the hall. The 6 paths of reincarnation's light wheel spun in the air. A vast energy shrouded the hall like a canopy. Spiritual treasure. A heavenly immortal spiritual treasure. The 2 of them were nervous and excited when they saw the seal. They were excited because the 6 paths of reincarnation was right in front of them and within their reach. As for their nervousness, this was a spiritual treasure. It was equivalent to a heavenly immortal. If it caused any commotion, the 2 of them would not be able to resist at all. 5 million years have passed. Finally, a descendant of the Netherworld's path has arrived. An ancient voice came from the seal. You broke through the restriction and came here after so many hardships. The wish of the golden-armored Heavenly Lord finally has a successor. The vast aura was instantly retracted, and the 6 paths of reincarnation light wheel was sucked back into the seal. In the seal, the ancient voice sounded again, Juniors who cultivate the Tao of the Netherworld, are you willing to inherit the will of the gold-armored Heavenly Monarch and establish a Netherworld kingdom for this world and evolve the 6 paths of reincarnation? We are willing. Hearing this, the Yama Emperor and the God of the Underworld were both shocked and overjoyed. They hurriedly knelt on the ground respectfully. Establishing the Underworld and developing the 6 paths of reincarnation is our lifelong wish. If hell doesn't open, and the cycle of reincarnation doesn't open, we swear that we won't attain the Tao. Hearing this, Liu almost burst out laughing. You dare to say that you won't achieve the Tao? You also want to attain the Tao? Even if the primordial spirit of the numinous treasure was pure and innocent, how could it be so obvious that it was lying? Very good. With your determination, the golden-armored lords will finally have a successor. The ancient voice let out a hearty laugh from within the seal. Light flashed and the seal shrank back down into the Yama Emperor's hand. A spirit treasure that has gone through 3 blight tribulations? Heavenly Book of 6 Paths of Reincarnation? Huh? Aeon Master of the Underworld? After receiving the title, the highest rank one can attain is the position of the Nether Emperor, have the strength of a heavenly immortal, and enjoy a lifespan of 1,000,000 years? After the seal landed in his hand, the central restriction was released. After the Yama Emperor inserted his soul imprint into it, he received all kinds of information from the seal of reincarnation and exclaimed in shock. With such a supreme treasure, the Nether sect will be invincible. Hearing the Yama Emperor's exclamation, the god of the underworld trembled with excitement. The Nether Emperor, the strength of a heavenly immortal, and a lifespan of 1,000,000 years without any calamities. This was a peerless opportunity. A lifespan of 1,000,000 years. Even a heavenly immortal would not have a lifespan of 1,000,000 years if he did not overcome the 5 blights of heaven and man. The 49 heavenly tribulations of the young God, and the 5 blights of heaven and man, had to overcome these tribulations to become a golden immortal Tao ancestor. There was not even one essence soul perfected master among billions of people. After receiving the title, one could have a lifespan of 1,000,000 years and live freely in the world. This was a peerless opportunity that countless people dreamed of. Ha 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 ha. Our sect will prosper. Our sect will prosper. Holding the seal of reincarnation, the Yama Emperor laughed loudly. Come, let's return to the sect. We'll establish the underworld and create the 6 paths of reincarnation. The 2 of them left the cave abode and returned to the western wilderness outer area through the stable void tear. Yama, god of the underworld, how dare you injure and steal our treasures in the Itinerant Cultivator Alliance's territory? Do you think the Itinerant Cultivator Alliance is weak? The Yama Emperor and the god of the underworld had just walked out of the western wilderness when they saw the Itinerant Cultivator Alliance's elder, Qi Chongshan, and 2 other essence soul-perfected masters of the Itinerant Cultivator Alliance. Think the Itinerant Cultivator Alliance is weak? The Yama Emperor raised the seal of reincarnation and nodded with a smile. That's right. I think the Itinerant Cultivator Alliance is weak. You've gone too far. Preposterous. Qi Chongshan and the other 2 essence, soul-perfected masters were instantly enraged. Yama, even if you've overcome 2 heavenly tribulations, we're not that easy to bully. The 3 essence soul-perfected masters activated their Dharma treasures and charged toward the Yama Emperor and the underworld. You're really easy to bully. The Yama Emperor sneered and shook his head. He raised the seal of reincarnation and smashed it forward. Boom! The heavens collapsed and the earth cracked. The incomparably huge power, the divine might that could destroy heaven and earth, was unstoppable. With the seal of reincarnation, another huge rift appeared in the already shattered void of the western wilderness. As for the 3 essence soul-perfected masters of the Itinerant Cultivator Alliance, nothing was left of them. The might of a heavenly immortal's numinous treasure is truly powerful. With the seal of reincarnation, the Nether sect is invincible. The Yama Emperor and the Nether Emperor laughed loudly. There was a flash of light as they rushed back to their lair. If they could establish the netherworld as soon as possible and evolve the cycle of reincarnation, they would be conferred with the power of a heavenly immortal and enjoy a lifespan of 1,000,000 years. The 2 of them left the western wilderness. However, the commotion of killing 3 essence soul-perfected masters with a wave of their hands had shaken the world. Did the Nether sect obtain some supreme treasure in the western wilderness? If that's the case, the balance has been broken. Troubled times are coming. The righteous Tao sects were worried about this. The Yama Emperor killed 3 essence soul-perfected masters of the Itinerant Cultivator Alliance with a single attack? In the western part of the North Pole, the vast sea of blood churned endlessly. Patriarch Blood River looked in the direction of the Nether sect and frowned slightly. It seems like we'll have to get Patriarch Blood God to recover as soon as possible. The Nether sect obtained an ancient heavenly immortal's numinous treasure. In the Great North Pole's vast frost sect, Meng Nishang, the Yang God enlightened master, sat in the Moon Palace like the goddess of vast frost. The vast frost palace is also a heavenly immortal's numinous treasure. However, I wonder how many blight tribulations the Nether sect's heavenly immortal's numinous treasure has gone through. It seems like I'll have to make a trip to Penglai and Immortal Islands. As for the Penglai and Immortal Islands, nobody cared about this. In the end, Su Jifei could not keep his mouth shut. He spread the news that the Patriarch was extremely close to the 5 elements Tao ancestor. However, he was still frozen in the chaos frost ice. What do you mean extremely close? Do you know what you're saying? Literally you flew into a rage and flew into a rage. Chapter 1053. The Nether Sect in the Een Spirit Sea. A large, black, and cold island stood in the sea that was filled with Een Chi. This was the Nether Sect's base. Fellow disciples and fellow disciples, the Nether Sect's long-cherished wish has been fulfilled. The Emperor of Yama stood on the high platform. He held a huge seal in his hand. 6 mystical lights spun endlessly. His aura filled the air. Today, the Nether Sect possesses the true technique of the 6 paths of reincarnation. Today, the Nether Sect possesses the seal of reincarnation that's past the 3rd blight tribulation. Today, we're going to accomplish an unprecedented feat in this world. We're going to establish hell and create the cycle of reincarnation. The Nether Sect will be invincible under the heavens. The Emperor of Yama raised the seal of reincarnation and stood with his hands on his back. His aura shook the heavens. Invincible under the heavens. Invincible under the heavens. Invincible under the heavens. Below the high platform, the Nether Sect's disciples cheered excitedly at this moment. Lay the formation. Gather the power of everyone in the sect. Together we'll establish hell. The seal of reincarnation flew out of his hand and hovered in the air. Beams of spiritual light shot out from the seal of reincarnation and connected to the grand formation below, gathering everyone's power. Bzzzt streams of nether spirit chi surged into the seal of reincarnation. A cold, pure, dark, and sacred aura slowly gathered on the seal of reincarnation. The Emperor of Yama stood in the middle of the high platform. The Nether Emperor and the Chakravarti King stood on his left and right. Heavens above. Today Yama, the Nether Emperor, and the Chakravarti King lead the Nether Sect's disciples. Bearing the virtues of heaven and earth, with the ancient supreme treasure, the seal of reincarnation as the foundation, we'll establish hell and create the cycle of reincarnation. We'll create an opportunity for the Een spirits to reincarnate. As the ruler of hell, we swear to be fair and just. We'll treat all Een spirits equally. Heaven and earth will bear witness. As the ruler of hell, we swear to be fair in our rewards and punishments. Those who are virtuous will be rewarded, and those who are wicked will be punished. Heaven and earth will bear witness. As the ruler of hell, we swear to uphold ourselves and diligently cultivate virtues. We won't show favoritism. Heaven and earth will bear witness. When the 3 vows were made, the heavens and earth shook the heavens. A pure, deep, and sacred aura condensed between heaven and earth. Virtue. Virtue. Great virtue. In a trance, countless Een spirits and remnant souls in the entire world were kowtowing devoutly and praising loudly. Establishing hell. Evolve into reincarnation. With a loud shout, the Yama Emperor and the other 2 gathered all their strength and poured it into the seal of reincarnation. Boom! An earth-shattering boom rang out. The entire world was shaking, and the entire world was rumbling. The seal of samsara burst out with endless radiance, and a huge force violently erupted. A beam of light that was cold and pure, cold and tranquil, dark and sacred, suddenly blasted into the ground and connected with the origin of the earth. Buzz, in the depths of the earth, a quiet and dark space slowly opened. The seal of reincarnation exploded with a bright halo, sweeping up all the Nether Sect's disciples and bringing them into this dark and deep space. Boom! The seal of samsara suddenly exploded, turning into endless light that merged into the dark and deep space. Rumble! On the dark ground, a majestic and enormous palace rose from the ground. The 6 light wheels formed 6 bottomless wells in the palace. Mysterious and unfathomable radiance emerged from the wells. This was the reincarnation passage of the 6 paths of reincarnation. Splash! With the sound of water, a turbid river spread out from the void, penetrating the earth and flowing through it. This was the river Styx. The hell was established, reincarnation evolved, and the river Styx was connected. This newly established hell had been integrated into the entire hell system of the void universe. Clang, the sound of the heavens was vast and mighty. In the hell, a pitch-black and sacred radiance soared into the sky and formed a large seal in midair. It was still the seal of reincarnation, but there were differences. When the seal fell into his hand, the Yama Emperor instantly understood its function. This was the imperial jade seal that controlled the hell and the hell. This was authority and also an imperial conferment. I see. The Yama Emperor held up the seal with a solemn and serious expression and declared loudly, "From today onwards, I am the Yama Emperor. I am the supreme of the hell." As soon as he finished speaking, the imperial conferment was applied to him. A golden emperor robe appeared on the Yama Emperor's body. He wore a flat imperial crown on his head and an imperial robe. Vast divine radiance covered the sky and earth. He was sacred and majestic. At this moment, the Yama Emperor had become a heavenly immortal. He was the Yama Emperor of the Hell who had lived for 1,000,000 years without any disasters or tribulations. When they saw this, all the Nether sect disciples were surprised and delighted. As expected, there were endless benefits to establishing the Hell and evolving the reincarnation cycle. Greetings, Yama Emperor. At this moment, if the Nether sect members still did not know what to do, they would be idiots. Rise, my subjects. With the imperial conferment, the Yama Emperor had officially become the Yama Emperor of the Hell. Today we have done our best to establish the Hell. My subjects, you will all be rewarded. Holding up the seal, the Yama Emperor began to infect the officials of the Hell. The Emperor of the Dead is the Nether River Emperor. He will be in charge of the river Styx and guard the 18 levels of Hell. The Reincarnation Taoist will be the Reincarnation Emperor. He will be in charge of the reincarnation of all living beings. Imperial conferment. With this round of rewards, everyone in the Nether sect received the divine titles of the Hell and became deities of the Hell. Judges, black and white impermanents, Netherworld envoys, Netherworld soldiers, and other divine titles were completed. The structure of the Hell was complete. Gods, take your place. Stepping into the Hell's palace, the Yama Emperor sat down on the dragon throne and pressed the seal in his hand on the table before him. Their auras connected. Everything in the Hell was in his hands. The Hell is established. The reincarnation cycle is complete. The gods are in their places. Send my order. Open the gates of the Hell and take in the souls. With this order, the gates of the Hell officially opened. The Hell was officially operational. The Hell was officially established. Clang. Heaven and earth resonated. The heavens praised. Endless merit and nether merit descended from the heavens. The virtuous chi transformed into golden lotuses, while the virtuous chi transformed into white lotuses that floated down from the void. For a time, the entire Hell was filled with dazzling light. Heavenly flowers bloomed everywhere, and auspicious vapors rose. In the eyes of the Yu-Yutian cultivators, countless rays of light fell from the sky like raindrops on the sea of souls. The eerie sea became sacred and glorious like an immortal realm. Is this merit from the heavens? Upon seeing this, the expressions of the cultivators from the various sects turned grim. If the Nether sect's ghost Tao cultivators who were neither human nor ghost wanted to gain merit, they would have to establish the underworld and perfect the cycle of reincarnation. With this momentum and the heavenly immortals' spiritual treasure, the Nether sect's power will increase greatly. I'm afraid it'll be difficult to stop them. A group of knowledgeable people were deeply worried. However, what? Apart from the black and white impermanents and the Netherworld soldiers, the other gods of the Netherworld can't leave the Hell? What? Those who violate the 3 great O's will be stripped of their divine titles? What? We have to judge the merits and demerits of all souls? We have to reincarnate or imprison them according to the laws. We can't slack off? We don't even have holidays? We have to work like this for 1,000,000 years until we die? If * king quit, alright? What? I can't quit? The Yama Emperor overturned the table with a kick. Just like that, the Nether sect was duped into the fire pit. Chapter 1054. Is this the virtue of the underworld? A pure white radiance lingered on Li Yu's fingertip. The power contained in the aura of the virtue of the underworld made Li Yu speechless. As expected, the virtue of the underworld is only useful to ghosts. The meaning of the virtue of the living is only to protect the descendants. Fortunately, Li Yu didn't need the virtue of the underworld to play a role. Otherwise, spending so much effort to get something that he didn't need would really be a waste of effort. All I need are the rules. Observing the process of establishing the underworld and giving birth to the virtue of the underworld is enough. Until now, he had finished analyzing the virtues of the saints, merit, and underworld. He was still missing the virtues and morals. Morals could be obtained by Yu Xunxiao spreading the great Tao. But the virtues, I'm still a little unsure about the virtues. In Li Yu's opinion, the effects of the virtues didn't seem to be much different from providence. They both increased the chances of obtaining various benefit. I still have to observe for a while. He looked around the various worlds and chose some people with virtues to observe. Li Yu wanted to use this method to figure out the true meaning of the virtues. Old sir, you have so many children and grandchildren. You are really blessed. In a certain mortal world, an ordinary old man held a walking stick and teased his children and grandchildren with trembling hands. The passers-by were all praising him with smiles on their faces. This old man, who was about to die, was a person with virtues. However, this person wasn't very rich. In fact, his family was a little poor. If he had virtues, why was he still in such a situation? Many children, many blessings. The old man smiled and patted the heads of the children beside him. His face was full of happiness. Blessings? I see. Li Yu was enlightened. The virtues had no other effect but to make people happy. The effects of the virtues varied from person to person. Even if it was an ordinary mortal, even a poor mortal, as long as you felt happy, the virtues had already been achieved. Sometimes, happiness only needed a sentence to make people feel very happy. Is this the difference between the virtues and the luck? Li Yu nodded, but there were still many doubts in his heart. How do virtues and luck come about? What did he do to earn his blessings? What do you need to do to get luck? Looks like I'll have to spend some time studying it. After retracting his gaze, Li Yu began to think about ways to study merit and providence. Actually, there are a few worlds that specialize in studying the Tao of providence. A certain Almighty had created a series of worlds. There's Yi Ding, who revolutionized the world, and Emperor Qing, who killed his younger sister to attain the Tao. These worlds have studied the Tao of providence very deeply. Li Yu shook his head. Unfortunately, that's another world. It doesn't help me much right now. If I can't figure out the Tao of providence in this world, I can only go to the Azure Thearka's world and kill my sister to prove my Tao. For Li Yu, time was running out. It was too much of a waste of time to travel to another world just to study providence. Therefore, he had to do his best to complete this research in this world. According to the laws of this world, the Tao of fortune can be refined into the Tao of destiny. Everything was predestined by fate, destined by the heavens. This kind of great Tao mystical power is still very valuable. When the time comes, heaven and earth will work together. When the time comes, the hero will not be free. Time is also fate. These were all providence and destiny. In the myriad worlds, there's a profession that specializes in studying providence and destiny. That's fortune-telling. Li Yu had also studied the Book of Changes in the Yang God world. Besides, with Li Yu's current realm, he could see through the past and future of the timeline. He could also see through all the causes of karma. If Li Yu were to do fortune-telling, he would naturally be able to do it. However, I still have to know the reason. I have to know what's going on and why it's going on. That's what I want to study. So, I still have to play the role of a fortune-teller? By comparing the fate trajectories of countless people, observing the rise and fall of providence, the ups and downs of life, and the vicissitudes of life, he finally concluded that providence, which was also the rules of destiny. He stretched out his hand and slapped his forehead. Billions of rays of brilliance rushed out from the top of his head and floated down, rushing into the billions of worlds. Li Yu divided his consciousness into billions of parts and released billions of souls. He played the role of a fortune-teller in the heavens, telling the fortunes of people. Fortune-telling, I'll be able to do it for free. In a world that had fallen into the age of Dharma and dissipated spiritual energy, in the capital of a celestial empire, an old Taoist wearing linen clothes and holding a long banner shook a bell and swaggered through the street. Great Ming? This world is really interesting. It's also somewhat similar to a dynasty in the central plains of the Divine Prefecture. It was also invaded by foreign enemies, and there was also an internal rebellion. Now, the Great Ming Empire was in a precarious situation. The chaos of war was imminent. There was a defeat at the front, and the people of the capital were in a state of panic. Even Li Yu's fortune-telling business was greatly affected, and no one paid attention to him. Hey, fortune-teller, come here. Our master wants to take care of your business. In a small tavern on the outskirts of the imperial city, a sharp voice rang out. It was a middle-aged man with a pale face and no beard. Ha ha! So that's how it is. Not asking about the common people, but ghosts and gods. Interesting. Li Yu, who was disguised as an old Taoist in linen clothes, nodded with a smile on his face and walked into the tavern. There were not many people in the tavern. A middle-aged man in a green robe with a thin face sat in the hall. The others were the waiter, the shopkeeper, and a few ordinary men in ordinary clothes. However, Li Yu could see that everyone here was in disguise even without using his divine ability. There was no waiter or shopkeeper. They were all in disguise, and they were all just protecting the man in the green robe. Are you good at divination? The man in the green robe looked tired. He raised his eyes and looked at Li Yu. He smiled and said, You said that it's not free. Then, can you tell me? I am good at divination. Please say a word, and I will be able to calculate it. Divination? Then let's test the word gold. The man in the green robe dipped his finger in the water and wrote the word gold on the table. His greatest enemy in life was Jean, so he wrote the word Jean as soon as he wrote it. The king of men, so it's the emperor of the dynasty. The old Taoist in the linen clothes smiled and bowed. I greet the emperor. You do have some skills. The man in the green robe smiled. Continue to decipher the word. The word gold. The king of men is willing to sacrifice himself. His Majesty is afraid that a great calamity is about to befall him. How dare you? As soon as these words were said, angry shouts sounded from all around. The others in the tavern stood up one after another and reached out to grab the hidden long sabers. Retreat. The emperor of the Great Ming dynasty waved his hand and ordered everyone to retreat. Then, he looked at Li Yu. I wonder if you have a way to avoid the calamity? There are no absolutes in the world. There is always a glimmer of hope. Li Yu chuckled and waved his hand. A line of water rushed out of the teapot in front of the man in the green robe. It meandered like a dragon and condensed into a line of words in midair. Tomorrow at noon, worship the heavens at the Temple of Heaven. Worship the heavens. The emperor of the Great Ming dynasty was stunned. He suddenly realized that the Taoist in the linen clothes in front of him had disappeared in an instant. Immortal? At this time when the divine land is in turmoil, an immortal has descended to the mortal world to enlighten me? The fate of the Great Ming dynasty is indeed not over. The fate of the country was also one of the fates. His Majesty Emperor Yu was going to do an experiment again. Chapter 1055. In this Dharma-ending age, the great Tao does not appear, and vitality does not exist. The only thing left is providence. Providence belonged to destiny, and destiny ran through from beginning to end. Destiny is also order and rules. This is very valuable for my study of the Tao of order. Li Yu, the avatar of the linen-clothed old Taoist, was already prepared to mess around in this world and study the nation's providence. The next day, the current emperor really led the civil and military officials to hold a grand sacrificial ceremony at the Temple of Heaven. Then nothing happened. Don't ask about the common people, ask about ghosts and gods. The emperor is immoral, superstitious and lazy in politics. All kinds of accusations and rumors quickly spread throughout the world. Thus, the so-called Great Ming nation suddenly had a huge drop in providence and national providence. The nation's providence is related to the people's hearts? Big Boss Li, who stood the emperor up without the slightest bit of apology, was sitting in the clouds, carefully observing the changes in the dynasty's providence and analyzing the root cause. Those who win the hearts of the people will win the world. It seems that the path of the nation's providence is related to the hearts of the people. The nation's providence came from the hearts of the people, and the will of heaven is the will of the people. The so-called mandate of heaven of the country was the convergence of the wishes of the people under the rule. The hearts of the people were the root cause of the nation's providence. Then, Li Yu turned his head to look at the emperor who was sighing in the palace and smiled. "I'll give you a mandate of heaven and see if there are any changes in providence?" He reached out and waved his hand, and there was a loud boom in the sky. Auspicious light flowed in the sky, and endless immortal light fell like rain. Celestial music lingered in the air, and flowers fell from the sky. The endless beautiful scenery of the immortal palace appeared in the clouds. What is this? At this moment, everyone in the world was stunned by this strange phenomenon. Dong, the sound of heaven was vast and mighty, and it spread to the 9 heavens. The brilliant immortal gate slowly opened, and a group of immortals walked out of the gate. They stepped on auspicious clouds and flew from the sky, floating in the sky above the imperial city. "I am the messenger of the heavenly court." At the front, a man with a tall hat and a wide belt, with an ancient appearance, held a brilliant golden scroll in his hand, and shouted in the direction of the imperial palace, "Yu Huang de Tianzuan has an imperial decree. Where is the emperor of the lower realm? Quickly come and receive the decree." Yu Huang de Tianzuan? Heavenly decree? The emperor, who was sighing in the palace, suddenly heard this voice and hurriedly rushed out of the palace. The heavens have finally responded to me? Thinking back to the sacrificial ceremony at the Temple of Heaven, the emperor was enlightened. Yes, a day in heaven is a year on earth. After I prayed to the heavens, the heavenly court immediately issued a decree. However, many days have already passed in the mortal world. He hurriedly tidied up his clothes and stepped onto the heavenly altar respectfully. The emperor bowed down and said, "Zhu Yu Jiao, Prime Minister of Hashan, greets the heavenly angel. Emperor, please rise." The heavenly court emissary smiled and nodded. Then, he picked up the golden scroll in his hand and slowly opened it. Yu Huang de Tianzuan has a decree. The emperor of the lower realm was diligent in handling the affairs of the country. He worked hard to govern the country and cultivated benevolent governance. His virtues were commendable. Special reward. Favorable weather, bountiful harvest. As soon as he finished speaking, the golden heavenly decree exploded with a boom, turning into countless rays of light that fell from the sky like rain. The immortal light was like rain, a sweet rain falling from the sky. All the people of the world shared the grace of the heavens. Bathed in this sweet rain, everyone in the world felt the vitality in their bodies surging, and their diseases were all cured. The blind could see the light again, and the deaf could hear the sound again. More importantly, in this great Ming country where half of the country was facing drought and famine, the moment this sweet rain fell, the dry land became moist. The dry and barren land became verdant in the blink of an eye. The dry rice and wheat were rejuvenated and grew rapidly, blooming, earing, until golden and heavy rice ears covered the fields. The whole world was in a state of bountiful harvest. Long live! Long live! Long live! At this moment, whether it was the rebels who were rebelling, the army that was suppressing the rebellion, or the countless poor people, they all knelt on the ground in surprise and fear. The country was favored by the heavens. The emperor diligently cultivated benevolent governance, and was a wise ruler for all ages. For a moment, the hearts of the people were yearning for peace in the world, and the four seas were peaceful. The destiny of the country was like a brocade of flowers and adding oil to the fire. The prosperity of the destiny was rarely seen in the world. It is indeed like this. The one who wins the hearts of the people wins the world. The will of the heavens is the will of the people. After this torment, he finally understood the destiny of the country. This clone returned to the main body, but there were countless other clones that continued to research. After all, the path of destiny could be sublimated into the path of destiny. This was worth researching. A country's destiny, a sect's destiny, and a person's destiny are all different. There is even the so-called suppressing destiny. This also needs to be researched. The billions of clones fell into different worlds, and they were researching destiny in different countries, sects, and mortal worlds. You said that you can calculate all the heavenly secrets? In a certain mortal world, Li Yu's clone had just tricked a scholar, telling him to pay attention to a person called Zhu Yingtai when he went to school. After walking out of the city gate, Li Yu's clone was stopped by a young man with 2 swords on his back at the side of a small mountain. The heavenly secrets cannot be calculated. The world-famous white-clothed divine form had a faint smile on his face. Honored sir, what advice do you have for me? Aren't you the white-clothed divine form, able to calculate all the heavenly secrets? Can't you calculate what I am here for? The sword-bearing man looked at Li Yu mockingly and pursed his lip. I'm afraid that you are just trying to trick a mortal? Want to calculate? That is not difficult. The white-clothed divine form chuckled. The person is by the mountain, and there is the word immortal here. It can be seen that you are an immortal cultivator. The swords on your back are crossed. This is the word kill. Your killing intent has been aroused. Ha 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 ha! The sword-bearing young man laughed loudly. Not bad. Not bad. As expected of the white-clothed divine form. Unfortunately, you should not have divined that I was the one who stole the heavenly profound treasure. Thus, I can only send you on your way. Of course, you will be punished by the heavens. With a wave of his hand, the twin swords on the young man's back whistled out like 2 rainbows, slashing down on Li Yu's clone. Then, pooh! A sword light whizzed out from behind the cliff. With a twirl, the twin swords man's head flew off and fell to the ground. Harboring evil intentions, and carrying a sharp blade behind your back. This is the word death. The white-clothed divine form shook his head indifferently and turned to leave. The Tao of Providence is really interesting. This man with twin swords on his back had always been very lucky. He could even pick up treasures while walking. When they formed a team to search for treasures, his teammates were bound to die, and the treasures would fall into his hands. Thus, this person became Li Yu's research subject. Let his luck be extremely good, and he obtained the heavenly profound treasure that everyone in the entire cultivation world dreamed of. Then, he leaked the news, causing him to be hunted down. He studied whether luck could allow him to turn things around in a situation of certain death. Then, this person sacrificed himself for Li Yu's research career. Chapter 1056. I'm afraid I'll still need some time to study fate and sublimate it into the path of destiny. Releasing billions of clones and tossing about in the various worlds, he collected many samples and had many references. Liu also had a lot of insights into the path of fate. The catalogue of fate annihilation in the Prime Clear collection was the opposite of the path of fate. This was fate annihilation, it was destruction, end, doomsday, and calamity. The path of fate annihilation also had a remarkable ability that could cut off the fate of others. This was also very helpful for Liu's study of the path of fate. However, to sublimate it into destiny and become everything is destiny was still very difficult. In my opinion, destiny is also a type of order. In fact, it is a representation of order. Everything in the world was in destiny. To study and understand such things, one had to analyze everything in the world and the connections between everything in the world. This connection could only be order. The so-called destiny is actually an inevitability under the operation of order. Therefore, analyzing the path of destiny is very related to my analysis of the path of order. It's worth spending time to study. Releasing his clones to study fate, he could not stop the other research projects. It's time for Yu Xinxiao to preach the Tao. With a thought, little Liu, who was cultivating in the Penglai sect, smiled and got up. Taking out a talisman, he contacted Yu Xinxiao. Evil woman, how's your cultivation? Being tricked by Liu to study gravity, and wanting to walk the path of strength, Yu Xinxiao should be frowning during this period, right? Don't be noisy. I'm very annoyed. Studying gravity was considered a beginner, but the structure of matter in this world did not have such things as atoms. The more she studied, the more confused Yu Xinxiao became. You're also a half-step golden immortal. After cultivating for so many years, you're building a cart behind closed doors. Don't tell me you don't understand this principle. Go out and see more, you'll be able to find the pattern. Liu wanted Yu Xinxiao to study morality for him, so he naturally had to trick her into going out. That's true. Yu Xinxiao nodded. Alright, I'll go out for a walk. I heard from that brat Su Zhifei that your relationship with the 5 elements Tao ancestor isn't shallow. After I leave, I don't have to worry about Yu Yutian being targeted. For so many years, Yu Xinxiao had been cooped up at home. Wasn't it because she had to guard this dilapidated Yu Yutian? Since Liu had a good relationship with Tao ancestor 5 elements, after Yu Xinxiao left, he did not have to worry about Yu Yutian being tormented by others. Right, I'll give you a hint. In the various worlds, there were many worlds that didn't have the legacies of the orthodox great Tao. Go and preach. Creating a great Tao for a world. You will gain a lot from it. These words were not nonsense. To enlighten all living beings, one would be blessed with morality. The qi of virtue was the qi of wisdom. It was the blessing of the great Tao. Obtaining the qi of virtue was very helpful to Yu Xinxiao in comprehending the great Tao of strength. Got it. Yu Xinxiao waved her hand. With a flash of her figure, she left the Yu Yutian world and headed towards the various worlds to search for her own opportunities. Yu Xinxiao was still very concerned about Liu's hint about preaching the Tao. This junior brother actually had a relationship with the 5 elements Tao ancestor. His background in his previous life must have been frightening. The hint given by such a person naturally couldn't be ignored. After Yu Xinxiao leaves Yu Yutian and loses Yu Xinxiao's protection, the otherworldly demons and the heavenly immortals of the various worlds will become interested in Yu Yutian. Liu raised his head and looked at the broken Yu Yutian world membrane. A trace of a smile appeared on his face. Mending the heavens, this is a great merit. Liu slapped the table and roared, Little Su, come here. Ancestral Master. Su Zhifei's figure instantly appeared in front of Liu. Ancestral Master, what are your orders? Yu Xinxiao has already left Yu Yutian and is heading to the various worlds to search for a Tao integration opportunity. Without Yu Xinxiao's protection, the otherworldly demons will definitely come and invade. Li Yu smiled and pointed to the sky. So, your troubles are coming. Ancestral Master Xinxiao is going to Dao integration? Su Zhifei's focus wasn't on the otherworldly demons at all. With the Ancestral Master here, why worry about the otherworldly demons? Bastard! Li Yu slapped him. This is your opportunity. Yu Yuqian has been broken to this day and its world membrane is damaged. It can't resist the otherworldly demons. Mending the heavens is a great merit. Yes. Su Zhifei was a heavenly immortal after all. How could he not know the effects of merit? With merit protecting one's body, no evil could invade. Even tribulation transcendence would be easier. But mending the heavens? How should we proceed? World membranes were naturally formed by heaven and earth. Who knew how to repair them? This is the method of mending the heavens. Li Yu casually tossed out a jade slip, then waved a hand at Su Zhifei. Refining the world membrane requires too many materials. Your sect won't be able to handle it all. Inform the other sects you're on good terms with and have them work together. The method of refining world membranes was no longer a difficult problem in the various world. After the Floating Rome Merchant Guild had collected countless materials, Li Yu casually picked a method with a single effect that didn't require too many materials and tossed it to Su Zhifei. The Exalted 33 Skies. Su Zhifei was dumbfounded when he saw the method of refining the world membrane. Each of the 33 heavenly canopies was guarded by a celestial emperor who commanded millions of heavenly gods. Once the 33 skies were refined, there would be 33 heavenly immortal-level celestial emperors and more than 30 million heavenly generals and heavenly soldiers. If that was the case, who would still cultivate? Why not just become a heavenly god? More importantly, such a supreme treasure. Can we refine it? It'll take at least a few million years for a deity tablet to form between the heavens and the earth. For the time being, there'll only be a few heavenly soldiers. Li Yu had already turned the Nether sect into the god of hell. He was no longer interested in deity tablet. He only gave the Exalted 33 skies because he thought it was interesting. It's necessary to have heavenly soldiers patrol the world membrane. Su Zhifei nodded. I'll gather the major sects and discuss the mending of the heavens. After saying this, Su Zhifei bade farewell and left. The mending of the heavens plan is to obtain merit point. Li Yu had studied merit points before. There was not much research value in it. However, the relationship between merit points and karmic luck was worth studying. I've never heard of a person with merit being unlucky. The effect of merit points on karmic luck was one of Li Yu's research topics. I'll leave the research to my main body. I should focus on my cultivation. Although he had studied it from many sources, he did gain some result. However, Li Yu did not forget to let this clone cultivate in this world. He would create the great Daos of order and matter, and eventually obtain the laws of heaven and earth. Everything would be included in the great Daos of order. Finally, he would comprehend the chaos and disorder. Going from order to disorder was Li Yu's first hurdle in comprehending the chaos. Chapter 1057. The heavenly demons are still useful. In this void universe, there was a group of creatures that were born from the power of darkness and filth of heaven and earth. They represented the essence of destruction and slaughter. Therefore, the heavenly demons were responsible for destroying the world. To any world, they were the mortal enemies of all living beings. Li Yu looked up at the sky. Outside the world membrane, groups of ferocious and violent figures were already faintly discernible. Without the suppression of the Xinxiao Palace, the heavenly demons were already ready to make a move. It will take decades to refine the Daluo 33 heavens, even with the combined efforts of several sections. During this period of time, someone will naturally need to guard the world membrane and resist the invasion of the heavenly demons. Turning his head to look at the underworld, a strange smile appeared on Li Yu's face. Since I've become the god of the underworld, I naturally have to contribute to this world. This is a good opportunity to earn merit. With a thought, he sent a message to the seal of samsara of the underworld. Buzz, in the underworld, the Emperor of Hell and the others who were working diligently suddenly discovered a brilliant light erupting from the seal of samsara. A brilliant golden announcement slowly unfolded in midair of the underworld. This world is being invaded by the extraterrestrial demons. The god of the underworld is hereby ordered to guard the world and resist the demons. Seeing this golden announcement, everyone in the underworld looked at each other. Was this a business trip? As the god of the underworld, he worked himself to death every day to deal with the problem of ghosts. Now, he was given another task? More importantly, who was the one who issued this edict? If they didn't figure out this problem, another edict would come in the future, and they would have to work themselves to death again? What's going on? The Emperor of Hell grabbed the seal of samsara and asked in confusion. The god of the underworld is originally a part of heaven and earth. If this world is destroyed by the extraterrestrial demons and the underworld no longer exists, all of you will die. As for who issued the edict? No one. This is the will of the heavens. The voice of the seal of samsara sounded in the ears of the gods of the underworld. The will of the heavens. Everyone smiled helplessly. They thought that after receiving the title, they would enjoy 100 years of freedom. Who would have thought? How was this carefree and unfettered? This was the rhythm of working oneself to death. We can't afford to slack off when it comes to matters of the underworld. The Yama Emperor sighed. The three of us will take turns to guard the barrier and resist the invasion of the heavenly demons. After becoming a god, he could only be ordered around by others. He really didn't have any freedom. Then, with a wave of his hand, Emperor Yenluo led his troops out of hell and towards the boundary of heaven and earth. That is, when a streak of black light shot out of the Een-Soul Sea, a group of people with powerful auras and bright armor shot into the sky, shocking countless people. The Nether sect is heading to the world membrane to fight against the heavenly devils? The experts of the various sects who were discussing the heaven-mending plan looked up and saw the scene in the sky. They were both shocked and relieved. The Nether sect has become the Een god of the Nether world. Since he had accepted the priesthood, he naturally had to contribute to the world. With them guarding the world membrane, we can focus on refining the exalted 33 heavens. The experts of the various sects smiled and nodded. With the Nether sect at the front, we won't have to expend so much effort. We should refine it slowly, meticulously, and steadily. Only then can we strive for perfection and ensure that nothing goes wrong. Naturally, the experts of the various sects had a tacit understanding and set the Nether sect up. The Yama Emperor has the strength of a heavenly immortal, after all. Naturally, it won't be a problem for him to fend off the heavenly demons. After tricking Yu Shinshao away, Li Yu, naturally, would not allow anything to happen to this world. It was only right that the Nether sect was sent to fend off the heavenly demons. Kill. Emperor Yenluo waved his sleeves. The seal of reincarnation in his hand suddenly shot out. The vast radiance swept out. The heavenly demons in front of him were instantly wiped out. All hail the Emperor! All hail the Emperor! His teammates cheered behind him. This made Emperor Yenluo in high spirits. He had the strength of a heavenly immortal, but he had been traveling at night. He could only hole up in hell, and did not even have a chance to show off. Now, he could finally show off his might. At this moment, Emperor Yenluo suddenly felt that guarding the world barrier was a good thing. Ha 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 ha! Wipe out the heavenly demons! Emperor Yenluo laughed loudly and led his team to kill their way over. Li Yu was also laughing. Thousand-eyed heavenly demon, single-horned fiend dragon, white-boned heavenly demon, thousand poisons toad demon, dark Een moonlight demon, great solar true yang demon, mysterious yellow exquisite demon, and free incarnation heavenly demon. What a great harvest! With a single strike from the seal of reincarnation, the group of demons was wiped out. Then, Li Yu, who had tampered with the seal of reincarnation, naturally harvested these heavenly demons. The other heavenly demons are fine. The dark Yin moonlight demon and great solar true yang demon can evolve Yin and Yang Qi. The mysterious yellow exquisite demon can evolve mysterious yellow Qi. I have to study this thing. The heavenly demons were born to uphold the laws of heaven and earth. Although they were a little deformed and showed signs of growing crooked. However, they were still of research value to Li Yu. In fact, the otherworldly demons are the first native creatures born in this void universe. The five-colored peacock, the dragon race, the phoenix race, and other things can be considered this type of creature. However, some grew crooked and some grew straight. Those that grew crooked became heavenly demons, and those that grew straight became golden immortal Tao ancestors. Because they were born to uphold the laws of Tao, they turned into creatures that only knew how to kill and destroy. These heavenly demons had no chance of attaining the Tao. Sky fiends who had yet to attain the Tao would naturally not take this path. Therefore, the Yin and Yang Qi of the dark Yin moonlight demon and the great solar true Yang demon, as well as the mysterious yellow exquisite demon's mysterious yellow Qi, were all treated as ordinary innate divine abilities by people. In fact, to others this is really an ordinary innate divine ability. However, I can decompose, refine, and decipher the essence. In the resource warehouse, a five-colored brilliance swept out. The dark Yin moonlight demon, the great solar true Yang demon, and the mysterious yellow exquisite demon were instantly decomposed and refined into pure origins. Only the Yin and Yang Qi and the mysterious yellow Qi were left. It just so happens that I can decipher this world's Yin and Yang and the mysterious yellow great Tao. Although it's only a part of it. Heavenly demons that grew crooked naturally did not possess a complete great Tao. Otherwise, they would be Tao ancestors, not heavenly demons. The other heavenly demons only have the ordinary, evil Tao. However, free incarnation heavenly demon is more interesting. Free incarnation heavenly demon could infiltrate people's hearts. Free incarnation could fuse itself with the desires of others, magnifying those desires, and then provoking the cultivator's inner demons. For free incarnation heavenly demon, fusing with one's desires and feeling the joy within was the greatest enjoyment. For hundreds of millions of years, free incarnation heavenly demons had infiltrated the minds of countless cultivators. They had also collected the great Tao that countless cultivators had comprehended and passed down generation after generation, turning into a divine ability. Free incarnation art. This divine ability could demonstrate the great Tao of heaven and earth, causing cultivators to unknowingly become engrossed in it. Then it would be over. To me, free incarnation art is also a demonstration of the great Tao of heaven and earth, as well as the laws of heaven and earth. Although it's incomplete, it can still be analyzed. With a wave of his hand, the heavenly demons were decomposed. The various great Tao laws were displayed before Li Yu. He studied them carefully and felt that he had gained some insights. The Nether sect kept killing heavenly demons and kept sending research materials to Li Yu. What a nice person! Chapter 1058. 1 year, 2 years, 10 years. The Nether sect had guarded the realm membrane for 10 years. Li Yu had also studied it for 10 years. 10 years passed in the blink of an eye in the heavens. There were no changes at all. However, some people's changes were more shocking. Nascent divinity? Patriarch, you've attained the nascent divinity? The 14-year-old Li Yu was already a handsome young man. In 10 years, he went from Qi drawing to the divine soul, Jin Dan, and Yin divinity. Then, He broke through the life and death threshold and ascended to the nascent divinity realm. This speed frightened Su Jifei, who was focused on refining the Daluo 33 heavens, out of his closed-door cultivation. TCH. Do you know who the patriarch is? Ascending to the nascent divinity realm is a piece of cake. Liu waved his hand nonchalantly. In truth, apart from ascending to the Jindan, merging the dragon and tiger, and connecting heaven and man, which allowed Liu to comprehend a portion of the laws of heaven and earth, the other realms were not worth much. Only by ascending to the Tao integration realm within 100 years could Liu come into contact with the Tao of this world, which was also the laws of heaven and earth. Yes. Su Jifei was relieved when he remembered that the Patriarch was at the Eternal Realm. Patriarch, what do you plan to do next? The Patriarch must have something to do since he had ascended to the nascent divinity realm. Su Jifei hastily asked to see if there was anything he could do. There's no need. Just focus on refining the realm membrane. Patriarch, you're going out for a stroll. Liu smiled. He took a step forward and flew away in a beam of light. I'm going to trick people again. How can I bring you around for a stroll? It'll affect my image if you see me tricking people. Liu chuckled inwardly. He shot into the sky. In a place called the Great World of Seven Immortals, my main body found a very interesting fellow. That fellow called Young Master Duotian was completely the main character. Although he was still in a trashy state right now, in the future, he would truly have magical treasures automatically delivered to him, and beautiful women would mindlessly throw themselves at him. Wherever he went, he would be the target of everyone's amazement and envy. His luck was so great that he was practically a main character model. This kind of person is the target of my research. Of course, I have to trick him. Oh, give him an opportunity. Following the space-time coordinates given by his main body, Liu used a transrealm divine ability, broke through the void, and rushed to the great world of the Seven Immortals. When the cultivators of this void universe were in the Een spirit realm, they roamed the heavens in search of opportunities to ascend to the primordial spirit realm. The ability to travel between realms was not rare. Therefore, even though Liu's divine art was a little faster, it didn't attract the repulsion of heaven and earth. This is the world of an extraneous Tao primordial spirit. There were no legacies of the orthodox Taoism. Yu Shunshao even did an experiment here. After passing through the boundary, Liu landed on the ground. This is the Tian Yuan prefecture of the Seven Immortals' great world. In front of him was a bustling city. This was the destination of Liu's trip. Someone broke off the engagement with the eldest son of the Fong family. So it really was broken off? That good-for-nothing Fong Qi's meridians are weak, and his cultivation talent is extremely poor. Miss Liu is a cultivation genius. How can such a good-for-nothing be worthy of Miss Liu? That's right. As soon as Liu walked through the city gates, he heard the passers-by discussing the matter of the eldest son of the Fong family being broken off the engagement. Broken off the engagement? Haha. He really is the model of a main character. A good-for-nothing and broken off the engagement. Isn't this the basic configuration of a main character? Liu laughed strangely and looked in the direction of the Fong family. As expected, he saw the light of Providence hidden in the darkness, like a dragon hiding in the abyss. The golden unicorn is not a fish in a pond. This son of Providence will soon meet the wind and the clouds. Shaking his head with a smile, Liu walked toward the Fong family's residence at a leisurely pace. Fong Qi, we are not from the same world. In the living room of the Fong family's residence, a beautiful young woman expressionlessly spoke to a skinny and stubborn young man. You can't cultivate, but I have extraordinary talent and have the potential to reach the Jin Dan level. A mortal's lifespan is no more than 100 years, but once I reach the Qi drawing realm, I will have a lifespan of 200 years. What about a Jin Dan? What about a Dharma idol? or even an immortal primordial soul true immortal. There is a difference between mortals and immortals. I have already joined the Seven Mountain Alliance, and asked for a decree from my master. The young woman waved her hand and handed over a shining golden talisman. Break off the engagement. This is my will, and also the will of my master, the Seven Mountain Alliance's Jin Dan Grandmaster Puyuhua. The golden talisman emanated a powerful aura. It was the divine might of a Grandmaster Jin Dan. Under this pressure, everyone in the Fong family's residence turned pale. Break off the engagement? And use the might of a Jin Dan to threaten me? The skinny young man gritted his teeth. The humiliation and anger in his heart caused his entire body to tremble. Don't regret this. The young man stared coldly at the young woman, then waved his sleeves. Break off the engagement. I agree. With that, the young man turned and left. TSK. He didn't even say something as classic as "don't bully a poor young man." How could the break off the engagement not include "don't bully a poor young man"? Bad review. I must give him a bad review. Liu had been watching all this, but hadn't heard the famous phrase. He shook his head. Father, I want to go back to the ancestral home for a while. Having suffered such great humiliation, the young man named Fong Qi wanted to leave this place of grief. You can go back to the ancestral home for a while. Father Fong understood his son's feelings and nodded in agreement. Ancestral home? Ha! Liu laughed strangely. Humiliated and heartbroken, you return to the ancestral home only to discover a precious treasure left behind by your ancestors. This is the treatment of a main character. With a sweep of his soul, he learned the location of the Fong family's ancestral home from the souls of the Fong family servants. Liu's figure flashed as he left the city and rushed to the Fong family's ancestral home. I won't cheat you for now. I want to see the changes in your providence. You are now a hidden dragon in the Abyss Providence. Let's see how you become a flying dragon in the sky Providence. Concealing himself, he landed in the Fong family's ancestral home. With a sweep of his soul, Liu really did give out something in the Fong family's ancestral home. The rebirth pill? The heavenly Exion Seven Fiends sword? The Black Sun Rain True Spirit Jade Tome? Liu couldn't help but be shocked when he saw what was hidden in a statue in the Fong family's ancestral home. This is one of the strongest 7 immortal legacies in this world. Although it's only an outer Tao essence soul art, it seems like it was fated to be given to Fong Qi. The Tao of Providence was indeed magical. Was everything just a coincidence? Because of his lack of talent, the engagement was broken off. Because of that, he returned to the ancestral home deep in the mountains and obtained the precious treasure. It seemed like a coincidence, but it was inevitable. The Tao of Providence is a part of the Tao of Fate. As expected, everything is fate. However, fate is never absolute. Liu laughed. So, when you were acting tough, you were chopped up by Shi Xian. After hiding near the Fong family's ancestral home, Liu decided to observe this main character model of Fong Duotian. If the heavens don't accept me, I will seize the heavens. How loud was this slogan? How domineering and awesome was it? I hope you can play for a long time. Don't die so quickly. Chapter 1059. I can't accept this. I can't accept this. I want to defy the heavens. Fong Qi, who was suspected to be the protagonist, came to the ancestral home deep in the mountains. The humiliation and indignation in his heart made him roar in anger. Then, or when he went down the steps, he missed a step and crashed into an ancient and mottled statue. The blood on his forehead seeped into the statue. The heavenly Exion 7 Demons sword recognized him as its master. This works too. Liu opened his mouth, not knowing what to say. In Liu's observation, everything seemed to be connected into a line. Every accident was like a link on a chain. One link after another linked all the accidents together, and it became inevitable. Is this the effect of luck? It's like a line connecting all the coincidences together? He looked up at the sky and saw a dark cloud floating over. It seems something interesting is about to happen. Seeing this dark cloud, Liu blinked his eyes and a smile spread across his face. Clang, the magic treasure recognized its master, and the sword aura soared into the sky. A deep dark light shot into the sky, and the sharp sword aura shook the clouds. The dark cloud from before, under the influence of the sword aura, floated in the direction of the Fong family's ancestral home. Is that a treasure light shooting into the sky? A magic treasure has appeared? On a cliff opposite the Fong family's ancestral home, a figure covered in a black robe was startled by the sword aura. He turned his head and looked over in shock. A magic treasure has appeared? Such an opportunity exists? The black-robed figure was overjoyed. He rushed toward the Fong family's ancestral home in a flash of light. When the light landed, the black-robed figure saw the broken statue and the treasure exposed in the statue. He also saw Fong Qi, who hadn't even finished tempering his body and nurturing his soul. He was just an ordinary person. Such a treasure, in the hands of a mortal like you, isn't it a waste? As expected, this is my opportunity. The black-robed figure laughed and rushed over. He waved his hand, and a strong wind rushed out and sent Fong Qi flying. With a clang, the heavenly Xian 7 demons' sword fell to the ground. With Fong Qi's current strength, even if the Dharma treasure recognized him as its master, he wouldn't be able to use it. Against this black-robed cultivator, he was completely powerless. It seemed that Fong Qi's journey to defy the heavens had come to an end. Black Sun True Spirit Jade Book? Illusory magic weapon Heavenly Xian 7 Fiendish Sword? It is indeed a peerless opportunity. The black-robed man put away the Black Sun Rain True Spirit Jade Book and grabbed the Heavenly Xian 7 Fiend's sword. No. This is my opportunity. This is mine. Fong Qi roared furiously. Yours? Why is it yours? You're just an ant. The black-robed figure raised the Heavenly Xian 7 demons' sword up high. Only I deserve such a treasure. You accept your fate. At this moment, Fong Qi was in a hopeless situation. The peerless treasure he had just obtained was snatched away in the blink of an eye. He had already lost the chance to defy the heavens. Ah! I can't accept this. I want to defy the heavens. Unwilling, unyielding, he refused to accept it. Fong Qi roared furiously. Unwilling? Defy the heavens? Ant, I'll let you die to this treasure as a reward for discovering it. The black-robed man sneered and swung the Heavenly Xian 7 demons' sword at Fong Qi. Then, something shocking happened. Then, something unexpected happened. Crack! The moment the black-robed man swung the sword, a bolt of lightning struck down. The dazzling electric light followed the long sword and struck down. Buzz, electric snakes slithered, and the black-robed man trembled violently. He screamed and fell to the ground. A dark cloud slowly floated in the sky. I knew it! I knew it! This is so interesting. Liu almost laughed out loud. Everything is possible because of fate. Haha! This is so interesting. Fate was so wonderful. The appearance of the treasure shook the clouds and attracted the dark cloud in the sky. Then, when the black-robed man swung the Heavenly Xian 7 demons' sword, he sensed that the Heavenly Xian 7 demons' sword had attracted lightning. Therefore, Fong Qi, the son of fate, obtained a complete victory. Is the power of providence leading the changes in some things in a certain direction? Like a magnet attracting things to change in a certain direction? From what he observed so far, the power of providence seemed to be a magnet. It attracted things to change in a certain direction. However, this change was not absolute. If the black-robed man won, it might really break this pattern. Ha 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 ha. I won. I won. I, Fangqi, am indeed destined. I am indeed destined to be the protagonist of this era. Fangqi was stunned when he saw the situation before him. Then, he laughed out loud. His laughter was arrogant and domineering, proud and arrogant. How dare you harm me? You deserve it. He stepped forward and reached out to pick up the Heavenly Exion's Seven Demons sword. Fangqi kicked the black-robed man and raised the sword, about to slash down. Huh? It's a woman? With a kick, the hood on the black-robed man's head fell, revealing a beautiful face. Don't play dead. The cold blade was pointed at the black-robed man's throat. Fangqi sneered. Swear a karmic oath and become my concubine. I'll spare your life. Otherwise, I'll kill you without mercy. Submit or die. The black-robed man woke up, but the thunder had damaged his soul. He couldn't use any spells at all and had no power to resist in front of Fangqi. I'm destined. It's not impossible for me to advance to Jindan or even Essence Divinity in the future. You won't lose out if you follow me. Fangqi shouted loudly. The dragon hidden in the abyss above his head rushed up with a boom. The brilliant light of Providence turned into a huge, auspicious cloud. The dragon flying in the sky pattern had appeared. Being suppressed by this auspicious cloud, the black-robed woman only felt that the young man in front of her had become brilliant and majestic. Thinking of the scene when she wanted to kill him but was struck by the thunder, it seemed that the destined was not fake at all. I agree. The black-robed woman nodded in agreement. The beauty throwing herself at him, momentum began to appear. The light of Providence above Fangqi's head seemed to have received another boost and shone even more brilliantly. Is this momentum? The general trend was the mandate of heaven. It continues to form momentum, and the Providence becomes stronger and stronger. Liu observed for a while and nodded. An idea popped up in his mind. What if the general trend is weakened? Won't it reduce the Providence? Something like luck was definitely not unchanging. Everything in the world was evolving and changing. Nothing was eternal and unchanging. Therefore, Providence would definitely rise and fall. Young man, let's play a game. The karmic oath in this world was witnessed by the karmic ancestor, the glazed Buddha. However, Liu also had the principles of karma. When the black-robed woman made the karmic oath, Liu could naturally do something. When the black-robed woman realizes that her karmic oath is not bound, what will she do? I'm really looking forward to it. Chapter 1060. F***CK. Astral Projection Overnight? The next morning, when Fangqi and the black-robed lady walked out of their room, Liu suddenly realized that Fangqi's cultivation had already reached the astral projection realm. As for what happened last night, Liu adhered to the principle of see no evil, so naturally, he didn't look at it. Seeing Fangqi's cultivation soar and the black-robed lady's expression, Liu immediately understood. Dual cultivation technique? Dual cultivation technique in the harem? That's standard for the main character. Liu suddenly felt that he might not be able to continue playing that game anymore. Under the influence of Fangqi's providence, even without the karmic oath, the black-robed lady might not betray him. After all, feelings were born with time. Looks like I'll have to torture him a little more. Liu looked at the black-robed lady and saw the karma on her through the karmic thread. Young man, this junior sister has a senior brother behind her. So, after you made him a cuckold, he came to seek revenge. Isn't that a reasonable development? With a flick of his finger, Liu followed the karmic thread and tugged at the heartstrings of the senior brother. There's nothing dangerous about chaotic Cloud Mountain. Why isn't junior sister Tan back yet? In Tianyuan City, senior brother Wang, who had agreed to meet junior sister Tan here, was a little anxious. Junior sister Tan couldn't have been in trouble, right? Senior brother Wang could not wait any longer. No, I have to go find her. Senior Brother Wang rushed in the direction of Chaotic Cloud Mountain, which was also the direction of the Fong clan's ancestral residence. A moment later, the three of them met. A story of gratitude and resentment, love and hatred began. Junior sister Senior Brother Wang, who was flying over, saw the two of them hugging each other intimately. He felt as if he had been struck by lightning and almost lost control of his flying light. Senior brother, when junior sister Tan saw this figure, her body trembled. She felt wronged, resentful, sad, and nervous. For a moment, all sorts of emotions welled up in her, and tears rolled down her cheeks. You're her senior brother? All right, she's my concubine now. Since you're her senior martial brother, then we're family. Fong Qi glanced at senior brother Wang and hugged junior sister Tan in a show of force. Junior martial sister Tan's heart was in a mess, and she actually forgot to struggle free. Damn it! His head was already covered in green grass. Any man wouldn't be able to resist. Bastard! Die! Senior brother Wang roared angrily and released his flying sword to slash at Fong Qi. Ah! Don't! Junior sister Tan was shocked. She wanted to stop him, but when she saw senior brother Wang's furious and bloodshot eyes, she immediately lost the courage to stop him. You dare to make a move against me? Fong Qi was at the height of his success. Magical treasures and beauties were delivered to his door. He was the son of destiny, the number one in the world. How could Fong Qi, who was so confident in himself, take senior brother Wang seriously? You dare to attack me? Aren't you afraid of being struck by lightning? With a wave of his hand, the heavenly Xian Seven Fiend sword turned into a streak of black light and slashed at senior martial brother Wang's flying sword. Crack! The two swords clashed. How could senior martial brother Wang's flying sword compare to Fong Qi's magical treasure? It was instantly shattered. However, how long had Fong Qi been cultivating? He couldn't even enter the body tempering stage for more than 10 years. Now that he had reached the out-of-body tempering stage overnight, his cultivation had indeed skyrocketed. However, his abilities were unbearably weak. If not for his extraordinary magical treasure, he wouldn't have been able to block senior martial brother Wang's attack. Even if he blocked the attack, the consequences... Fong Qi spat out a mouthful of blood and staggered before falling to the ground in a sorry state. Is that all you've got? Is that all you've got? Senior martial brother Wang's eyes were bloodshot. He roared furiously and charged forward like a madman, punching and kicking Fong Qi. Bang! 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 Fong Qi was beaten up like a sandbag by senior martial brother Wang. His head was full of bumps, and he was bleeding all over. Ah! I'm the son of destiny. How can I be humiliated like this? I won't accept this. I won't accept this. I'm going to defy the heavens. Fong Qi screamed in his heart and roared furiously. Boom! At this moment, a violent roar came from the sky. A fire dragon rolled. Thunder roared. A giant fire dragon and a giant made of thunder fought in the sky. Sparks flew everywhere, and sparks flew everywhere. Unfortunately, some of the shock waves came from the battle. Boom! A strong wind blew, and the Fong family's ancestral house collapsed. The powerful force sent senior martial brother Wang flying. The son of destiny, Fong Qi, was also sent flying. Preposterous! Preposterous! I won't let this go so easily. Just you wait. Fong Qi, who was sent flying, happened to fall into a mountain stream and was washed away by the waterfall. He managed to escape the crisis. However, the beauty that he had just obtained was gone, and the magical treasure, the heavenly Xian Seven Demons sword, was also lost. Fong Qi, who was running away, gritted his teeth and shouted furiously, I'll return today's humiliation 100-fold. After saying that, Fong Qi turned around and ran away. Interesting. How very interesting. Li Yu, who had directed a good show, sat on the clouds, clapped his hands and laughed. In Li Yu's eyes, Half of the luck cloud above Fang Qi's head had dissipated. Obviously, the accident just now had caused Fang Qi's luck to drop. However, for better or for worse, his luck was great. When he faced this type of life and death crisis, there just happened to be a battle between experts. The shockwaves shook, allowing him to escape just in time. As expected, luck isn't constant. Fang Qi failed to open a harem, and the Green Hat Man came to his door and destroyed his luck. He also lost the Heavenly Xian 7 Demons sword, which was a big loss. The Heavenly Xian 7 Demons sword was Fang Qi's protective treasure. In the future, many robberies, killing enemies, and even opening a harem would be related to the Heavenly Xian 7 Demons sword. Losing the Heavenly Xian 7 Demons sword naturally meant losing a lot of luck. In the path of luck, a slight move in a hair will affect the whole body. The wind rises from the end of the green duckweed, but it can cause huge waves. I see. Through Fang Qi's personal demonstration, Li Yu witnessed his rise and fall, and saw the rise and fall of his luck. He already had a realization in his heart. At this moment, the main body that was hidden in the void smiled and opened his eyes. Luck, fate, I see. He waved his hand and the billions of avatars that were scattered in the heavens were retracted. Combining the realization of the billions of avatars and the changes in luck of Fang Qi, the son of luck, Li Yu already had a clear understanding of the path of luck. Before the creation of the heavens and earth, it was nothing. After the creation of the heavens and earth, it was something. The path of order, on the other hand, runs through the something and the nothing. The so-called destiny, the so-called fate, is the process of the path of order. The evolution of order was fate. My path of order has always been focused on order itself, but neglected the evolution of order. This path of fate is indeed a great supplement to my origin of order. As for the story of junior sister Tan and senior brother Wang, Li Yu naturally didn't care about it. What would senior brother Wang choose? Of course, forgive her. Chapter 1061. I've already figured out the Tao of Providence, and even the Tao of Destiny. Knowing what was going on and how it worked, Li Yu could also use his origin of order to manifest the power of destiny. The Tao of Destiny in this world is in the hands of the river diagram. It's enough for me to know what the power of destiny is. There's no need for me to wrestle with the river diagram. In this world, the ultimate goal of mastering the laws of heaven and earth was to perfect the chaos and disorder. It was already possible to transform the basic laws into the chaos and disorder. However, the connate 5 virtues, karma, destiny, life and death, destruction and end, calamity and calamity, illusion and nothingness, and other mysterious laws had to be mastered before they could be transformed into the chaos and disorder. Therefore, my current mission is to improve my clone as soon as possible and reach Tao integration as soon as possible. Only when I reach Tao integration can I completely come into contact with the 3,000 great Tao of this world. His clone had to make use of the time to cultivate. His main body had to do what he had to do. In many worlds, there's something called a list. Li Yu smiled as he looked at Yu Yutian. A sinister smile appeared on his face. I also created a list in this world. It seems quite interesting. He reached out and grabbed, and a floating meteorite fell into Li Yu's hand. With a brush of the Xian Huang Qi, the material transformed into a huge obelisk. Heavenly obelisk. With a brush of the power of order, the heavenly obelisk was engraved with the ranking rules. Immortal ranking, Grandmaster ranking, Genius ranking. The immortal ranking includes all cultivators from the essence soul to the yang soul. Sky immortals are not included. They are ranked by combat strength. The Grandmaster ranking includes all Jin Dan Grandmasters. Jin Dan and above Yin soul cultivators are not included. They are also ranked by combat strength. The genius ranking includes all cultivators in the Qi channeling stage and is ranked by combat strength. Spirit soul cultivators above the Qi channeling stage are also not included. Sky Immortals were not included in the Immortal ranking mainly because there were only a few of them in the world. There was no need to create a separate ranking. Een gods were not listed on the master board because they had all gone out to travel the greater world in search of opportunities to advance to the primordial spirit stage. No one cared about the board. The same principle applied to divine souls. When a divine soul cultivator sought out a lucky chance to reach the Jin Dan, they similarly didn't care about some ranking list. Naturally, this was the only way to achieve the effect of the rankings. Here comes the fun. Take a look at this cultivation world. Are all the cultivators wholeheartedly focused on cultivation and don't care about fame and fortune? With a wave of his hand, the gigantic heaven-reaching steel transformed into a streak of light and fell into Yu Yutian. Boom! The rainbow streaked across the sky, exploding with a heaven-shaking explosion. In the 100,000 mountain range between the southern wasteland and the western wasteland, a bright rainbow fell to the ground like a shooting star and let out a loud boom. A dazzling radiance soared into the sky, shaking heaven and earth. Boom! 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 3 streaks of light shot up into the sky, forming 3 huge golden lists in the sky. Immortal ranking, Grandmaster ranking, Genius ranking. On the huge list, dazzling names appeared one after another. In an instant, the world was shaken. What's going on? Tianji City has a Tianji ranking, and now there are 3 lists. Damn it! Even the primordial spirit and sun spirit are on the list? Old geezer Tianji, you're courting death. All the major sects flew into a rage. The sect's background was revealed to the world without any secrets. How could this be? Only the old geezer Tianji's Dharma treasure, the Tianji compass, had such a function. It must have been the old geezer Tianji who created it. Therefore, the experts from the various sects came to Tianji City aggressively to settle the score with Tianji Elder. I'm innocent. I'm innocent. It's not me. It's really not me. Tianji Elder's face turned pale when the primordial spirit experts from the various sects came knocking on his door. It's really not me. In order to prove his innocence, the Elder of Heavenly Secrets simply took out the Heavenly Secrets compass for everyone to examine. It's really not the old geezer Tianji? Therefore, the group of primordial spirit experts hurried to the 100,000 mountain range and arrived at the heaven-reaching steel. Once this list is out, the world will be in trouble. Penglai Sect's primordial spirit Venerable, Jiang Yehe, looked at the heaven-reaching steel and shook his head. 4 cultivators who live a simple life, once involved in the battle for fame and fortune, it will be very detrimental to their temperament. The group of primordial spirit Venerable quickly came to a consensus that this heaven-reaching steel must be destroyed. Boom! 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 Spell after spell and Dharma treasure after Dharma treasure violently smashed against the heaven-reaching steel. However, more than 10 primordial spirit Venerable joined forces, but they could not even leave a mark on this heaven-reaching steel. It was obvious that this heaven-reaching steel was not something that primordial spirit cultivators could shake. Unable to break it, unable to smash it, the crowd had no choice but to leave helplessly. Ancestral Master, what's up with that heaven-reaching steel? Su Zhifei secretly smashed the heaven-reaching steel once, but it was not damaged at all. He hurried back to Penglai and asked Li Yu, who had already returned from the world of the 7 immortals. No matter. How should Li Yu answer? Should he tell him that this was caused by the Ancestral Master? Naturally, he could only give a vague answer. All right. If the Ancestral Master said, no matter, then it could only be no matter. Su Zhifei could only leave helplessly. So, in the early autumn, strange stones fell from the sky and turned into the heaven-reaching steel. The 3 lists were displayed, shocking the world. Number 1 on the genius list, Du Bai from Ing Zhou? Du Bai, what are you capable of? How can you be number 1 on the genius list? I want to challenge you. Once the 3 lists were released, the first to cause a commotion was the genius list. Cultivators in the Qi channeling stage were all young people. Young people had high aspirations. How could they bear to be suppressed by others? Therefore, before Du Bai could figure out the situation, a group of disciples from Ing Zhou came to challenge him. Things like this were happening everywhere. Shi Xian from Penglai did not escape either. Shi Xian, you're number 3 on the genius list? You're the last person in the sect tournament. What are you capable of? What are you capable of being number 3? Fight. They fought fiercely. They fought fiercely. Rogue cultivator Pan Yunqi defeated Wind Sword Lu Ji, number 1 on the genius list, and officially entered the genius list. A few days later, the changes in the genius list made all the self-proclaimed geniuses in the world unable to sit still any longer. So you can enter the list by defeating someone on the list. This situation made the already fiery challenge trend even more fiery. Not bad. Not bad. This experiment can be considered a success. Li Yu did not fiddle with the list simply for fun. He was testing his own ideas. As expected, being on the list is gaining fame and popularity. Fame and popularity are the general trend. Naturally, it can increase one's luck. Li Yu felt that this experiment was necessary to observe the changes in the luck of the people on the list. That was how one's luck was created. Chapter 1062. This ranking list can increase one's providence? As time passed, the hidden effect of the ranking list was discovered by the elites of the various sections. This was because the chances of the disciples on the ranking list obtaining fortuitous encounters had greatly increased. All of them became exuberant and their fortunes were flourishing. Their cultivation had also become smoother. The Skirich steel is a treasure of providence? We have to take this seriously. The battle for providence was also a battle for cultivation. If the disciples' providence was flourishing, the sect's providence would be flourishing as well. Hence, the various sect members who initially rejected the ranking list became very supportive. The various sects opened up arenas for the cultivators on the ranking list to challenge. The ranking list challenge became a grand event in the cultivation world. However, the Nether sect could not participate. Why can't we participate? We're cultivators too, You're gods, not cultivators. The seal of Samsara's cold reminder rendered the Emperor Yama speechless. In truth, their power came from the imperial edict. Not only were they not cultivators, but they were not even divine path cultivators. The Nether sect that was in the fire pit could only work as deities of the underworld without complaint. Du Bai, this battle concerns the sect's glory. You must give it your all. On this day, the Ing province sect welcomed a peak battle. Du Bai, the first on the genius ranking, was going to fight the second on the genius ranking, the Luo Fu sect's galaxy sword, Ing Juexiao. Ing Juexiao was more than 10 years older than Du Bai. He had been at the peak of the Qi channeling stage for many years. His galaxy sword technique was extraordinary. However, with such strength, he was still ranked second. This made Ing Juexiao very unhappy. This battle was Ing Juexiao's battle to prove his name. Du Bai, let's fight. Ing Juexiao stood in the arena. The long sword in his hand that was swirling with starlight vibrated slightly, and a sword energy shot out. Boom! The sword energy shot into the sky and exploded with a loud boom. Sword energy thunder. Sword energy thunder. Seeing the sword light that soared into the sky and hearing the thunderous explosion, the countless cultivators watching the battle let out a burst of shocked cries. Thunderous sword energy. This was a realm of swordsmanship that many divine soul experts were unable to reach. Ing Juexiao had actually mastered the sword qi thunderous technique? No wonder he dared to challenge Du Bai. It turned out that they had come prepared. This time, Du Bai's title of number 1 on the genius ranking would be lost. A cultivator who was defeated in a challenge would inevitably suffer a great fall in their reputation and popularity. Naturally, his luck had also plummeted. Fame is just an external object. One's own body is the foundation. Du Bai, don't feel burdened. Just fight with all your might. As Du Bai's master, Fairy Mingqin was one of the few Jin Dan grandmasters who did not care about fame or fortune. In her opinion, no matter how great one's karmic luck was, wouldn't one still have to rely on oneself to cultivate? He couldn't neglect the essentials. In fact, Fairy Mingqin's view was correct. Luck was just icing on the cake. One's own cultivation was the foundation. However, cultivators on the genius ranking had a great increase in karmic luck and endless fortuitous encounters. This caused many sect, family clans, and cultivators themselves to be very concerned about karmic luck. Wielding a sword under the heavens, one's name was illustrious. Furthermore, one's karmic luck would greatly increase. One naturally could not let go of such a good opportunity. This disciple understands. Du Bai was naturally very grateful for Fairy Mingqin's concern. Only the heart and only the self. Whether it is karmic luck or reputation, they are all external objects. I have long since stopped being limited by external objects. How can I be burdened by reputation? Du Bai's cold face was expressionless. He did not care about other people's discussions, nor did he care about the encouragement of his fellow sect members. Pressing the moonlight sword, he walked onto the stage unhurriedly. Du Bai, it hasn't even been 10 years since you reached the Qi drawing realm. As for me, I have already been in the Qi drawing realm for 30 years. My cultivation is one and I have also mastered thunderous sword Qi. What will you use to fight me? As soon as he stepped onto the stage, Ying Juexiao used a psychological attack to attack Du Bai's confidence. Cultivation level has nothing to do with cultivation time. You have been in the Qi drawing realm for 30 years, yet you have not reached the godly soul stage. You are still ranked below me. This can only mean that you are not good enough. How could Du Bai not understand the psychological attack? He immediately retorted sarcastically, attacking Ying Juexiao's vital point. You're just showing off. Ying Juexiao snorted coldly and raised the Xinghe sword in his hand. I wonder if your sword is as powerful as your tongue? Won't you know if you try? Du Bai expressionlessly raised the moonlight sword. Senior apprentice brother Ying, please. Watch this. Ying Juexiao swung his long sword. Hazy starlight swirled around the Xinghe sword. Ethereal sword song. The sword light was like a drizzle, endless. Waves of ethereal celestial music rang out from the sword light. The celestial music was graceful and enchanting. However, this seemingly ethereal and soft sword light was as swift as thunder, as fast as lightning. The sword rain was hazy and suddenly enveloped the entire stage. Good. As expected of the Xinghe sword, the ethereal sword song is indeed unparalleled. Seeing this sword, the spectating practitioners instantly cheered loudly. Even the Jin Dan experts of the Ying Zhou and Luofu sects nodded their heads in admiration of Ying Juexiao's sword. To be able to cultivate sword techniques to such a level in the Qi gatherer stage, the Luofu sword cultivators were indeed extraordinary. Ethereal sword of stars? So many tricks. You have to know that it only takes one sword to kill someone. A white light flashed across Du Bai's eyes. He swung the moonlight sword in his hand and slashed down. A straight slash. Straight and direct, without any fancy moves. With just one slash, a ray of moonlight rushed up like a crescent moon. The ethereal starlight and the hazy sword rain were instantly split apart by this ray of moonlight. Boom! The sword light flashed, and then a roar sounded. Sword aura thunderous sound. Du Bai has also mastered the sword aura thunderous sound. Seeing the power of this sword, the crowd cried out in shock. No wonder Du Bai of the Ing Zhou prodigy ranking first. He had reached the Qi Gatherer stage less than 10 years ago, but he had already mastered the sword aura thunderous sound technique? Good. Ing Juexiao's reputation was not undeserved. When the ethereal sword rain was split apart by the moonlight, rays of starlight burst out from the Xinghe sword. Stars appeared in the light of the sword, as if the stars in the sky had fallen into the mortal world and appeared on the platform. The river of stars flowed and the vast starry sky swept out. This sword strike no longer had a soft and ethereal feeling. Instead, it had turned into a violent and crushing force. Clang, clang, clang. The moonlight and starlight intertwined. For a moment, the moon and the stars shone together. The entire platform was dazzling. A fierce battle between a dragon and a tiger. A fierce battle between a dragon and a tiger. The battle between the first and second on the prodigy ranking is indeed extraordinary. Such peerless sword techniques, no wonder they are the first and second on the prodigy ranking. The spectators saw the scene of the moon and stars intertwining on the platform and were instantly amazed. I didn't expect your sword techniques to be so extraordinary. I still have one more sword technique. Take my sword. Falling stars like rain. The sword light trembled, and stars fell from the sky with bright flames behind them, smashing fiercely toward Du Bai. Roar. Suddenly, a loud roar resounded, and monstrous flames surged up. A huge fire dragon rushed out, and fiercely collided with Ing Juexiao. Boom! With a loud explosion, the violent shock wave sent Ing Juexiao flying out of the platform. Ing Juexiao's face was full of shock and anger. How could you use spells in a sword competition? Senior brother Ing, I'm not a sword cultivator. Du Bai spread his hands. Yes, Ing Juexiao was a sword cultivator, but Du Bai was not. Spells were Du Bai's forte, right? He was not a sword cultivator, but he had mastered the sword aura thunderous sound. No wonder he was the first on the prodigy ranking. He deserved it. His popularity and providence had greatly increased. Chapter 1063. The Jin Dan and the Essence Soul are much more stable. Of all the ranking battles in the entire cultivation world, only the Qi Gatherer stage, Genius ranking, had intense competition. Almost no one challenged the Grandmaster and Immortal rankings. Let's not talk about Immortal Soul experts first. Even the Jin Dan Grandmaster rankings. Those who had formed a superior grade Jin Dan had a pure and flawless Tao heart. It was impossible for them to fight for fame. As for the middle grade Jin Dan and inferior grade Jin Dan, although they wanted to challenge, they didn't even have the qualifications to be on the rankings. The difference between a Dan and a higher grade was like heaven and earth. No middle grade or inferior grade Jin Dan dared to challenge a superior grade Jin Dan. However, my experiment is basically complete. I've verified everything that needs to be verified. After experimenting with the Tao of Providence in this world and deepening his understanding of Providence, Liu couldn't be bothered with the rankings. In addition to providence and fame, this ranking is also a tempering of one's heart. Losers can temper their hearts. Winners can also test their hearts. Let's see if they can maintain their Tao heart in the face of glory. Therefore, Big Boss Li was tired of playing with him again. There's a guy called Tao Ancestor Nirvana who wants to step into the third step of Tao integration. He needs to combine the Tao of Yin and Yang. He and Shixian will definitely have a Tao competition. Liu looked up at the sky and shook his head with a smile. Don't be nervous. You're just a boss on Shixian's path. I won't do anything. After Tao Ancestor Nirvana killed Qin Yunzi, he calculated that no one in this world could cultivate the Tao of Yin and Yang. Therefore, he stopped paying attention to Yu Yutian. And then, he was played until he was crippled. A golden immortal Tao ancestor can't even calculate a small cultivator related to his Tao. Who would believe that the Yu Daoren didn't do anything? Liu shook his head. I don't need to care about these trivial matters. Next, my avatar should cultivate. My main body can make a trip to the primordial chaos. There was a special place in this void universe. This place was a region in the void universe that had not yet completed its final evolution. The laws of heaven and earth were in a state of chaos. Earth, water, fire, and wind were wreaking havoc everywhere, as well as raging energy storms and black holes of various sizes. Of course, there were also all sorts of half-completed laws of heaven and earth. The chaotic great wilderness also had countless lands and starry skies, and all sorts of great wilderness beasts lived there. For example, the nine-eared phoenix, torch dragon, ingzhao, six-eared macaque, dijiang, fei, and many others. In essence, these primitive exotic beasts were the first batch of living creatures after the birth of the void universe. Compared to the sky devils, who had grown crooked, the prehistorical beasts in the chaotic prehistorical era didn't grow crooked. They were just not fully grown yet. They had divine abilities, magic power, and innate power of the great Tao, but they did not have brains. Primordial beasts had no intelligence and were no different from ordinary wild beasts. Although heaven immortals and even half-step gold immortals were everywhere, it was extremely rare for them to possess intelligence. There's a primordial chaos hidden mysterious vine. It gained sentience and advanced to the half-step golden immortal realm. With the primordial chaos hidden mysterious vine as the foundation, it created the Nanine Great World and established the Great Void Sect. It called itself the Hidden Daozi. If one didn't become a golden immortal, one would be a pawn in the struggle for the Great Tao. The Hidden Daozi was also a pawn. Of course, Liu wasn't interested in being a pawn or not. However, Liu was still very interested in the Hidden Daozi's Tao of Dreams. I've seen the celestial venerate of Mirage's Tao of Illusions, and I'm also interested in the Tao of Dreams of this world. Qian Daozi, I'll observe you for a while. Just think of it as admiring flowers. Liu's main body stood up and took a step forward. Ignoring the distance between them, he instantly arrived in the chaotic great wilderness. It really is the chaotic great wilderness. How chaotic! Earth, water, fire, and wind surged, and energy storms wreaked havoc. All sorts of incomplete Tao laws stirred between heaven and earth. Black holes appeared one after another, and cracks appeared in the void. Those below the heavenly immortal realm won't be able to survive unless they find a peaceful place. Liu raised his eyes and looked ahead. There was a peaceful area there. It was a land floating in the middle of an energy storm, like a small boat floating in the middle of a raging sea. Are you hiding here, Hidden Daozi? On that piece of land, Liu saw an ordinary vine wrapped around a huge tree. You've turned yourself into an ordinary vine and don't reveal any spirit energy. You're hiding from disaster. The Tao of Dreams of the Hidden Chaos Vine was the key to the ancestral dragon's daughter, Aoli. That was why the Hidden Daozi had to hide his true body and reveal himself as a dreamscape. The only reason you dare to reveal yourself as a dreamscape is because Tao Ancestor 5 Elements, Kongji, is helping you conceal the heavenly secret. Otherwise, you wouldn't be so bold. Liu smiled and walked to the side of the vines without making a sound. The chaos was formless and traceless, so the Hidden Daozi couldn't sense that someone was spying on him. You're just a vine. Of course you can't count as spying. Liu smiled as he looked at this vine. In his eyes, the primal chaos hidden mysterious vine had already revealed its true appearance. It was an immortal vine with a hint of darkness in its green color. It was enormous, and its vines coiled around it, forming a major world. It was a dreamscape called the Hidden South World. There was no sun, moon, or stars in this dreamscape, only glowing green leaves. The green leaves were the land. Some were like that small island, only a few kilometers in circumference. Some were like continents spanning millions of kilometers. Some were barren and desolate, some were full of life, some burned with flames, and some rippled with water. There were also creatures living on these leaves. There were humans, plants, and all sorts of beasts. There were about 2,700 leaves, and each of them carried a slight trace of the Great Tao. I want to manifest the 3,000 Great Taos, perfect the dreamscape, merge with the Tao of dreams, and become a golden immortal? Too bad I'm still far from it. Liu looked at the vine and carefully observed the Tao of dreams contained within. Starting from the dreamscape of all living beings, to comprehend the power of dreams. From there, I'll understand the principles of illusion, reality, and illusion, merge with the Tao of dreams, and finally attain the grand void, becoming a Tao unification golden immortal. This path was very interesting. The Tao of dreams, the power of dreams of all living beings. This thing was somewhat similar to the divine Tao cultivation technique of becoming a god through incense. Similarly, it gathered the power of thoughts of all living beings. However, the Tao of dreams did not require faith or incense offerings. It only needed to be able to dream. As expected, I need to learn from many sources to comprehend by analogy. Liu nodded with a smile. Seeing the Tao of dreams had opened his mind. If the power of dreams could be gathered, then what about fear? Greed? Jealousy? Hatred? The powers of the 7 emotions and 6 desires could all be gathered in the same way. The so-called 7 deadly sins, the so-called demons, or the mental demons, can be cultivated through this method. It could also create a series of demonic Tao. Of course, righteousness, compassion, courage, honesty, protection, and so on. These positive emotions could also be created. This is the Tao of mental demons? Haha, how interesting! Chapter 1064. This world really did have the Tao of the mental demon. The primordial chaos golden dippers Tao of doom and the Tao of the mental demon were 2 sides of the same coin. The grand beginning fiend ancestors' great Tao of evil also contained the mental demon. You inner demons are only half-step golden immortals. You don't even have a mental demon dermic formulation that is compatible with the postnatal Tao. Liu was about to stir up trouble again with his playful heart. Yu Yutian also has a fellow named Fairy 7 Emotions. Although she's only an inferior grade Jin Dan itinerant cultivator, she's good enough as an experimental subject. With a wave of his hand, he transmitted the Tao of the mental demon that he had just deduced to his avatar in the Penglai sect. Just use an avatar to fool a Jin Dan itinerant cultivator. There are still many good things in the primordial chaos. There was a place called the Lost Tao Chaos Hole in the primordial chaos. This Lost Tao Chaos Hole was because the 3,000 Great Tao had yet to be fully developed. There was only one or a few incomplete Great Tao. Since I have nothing to do, I might as well study the incomplete laws of heaven and earth from these Lost Tao Chaos Holes. Liu smiled and stepped into the primordial chaos to find the Lost Tao Chaos Hole to study the laws of Great Tao. He did not disturb the hidden chaos vine. Penglai Island. Liu's avatar received the Tao of the mental demon from his main body and shook his head with a smile. With his soul as one, his main body and avatar naturally had the same thoughts. Alright. Giving out opportunities is what I like to do the most. With a sway of his body, Liu's avatar tore through the void and rushed towards the western wilderness. In the periphery of the western wilderness, Heaven's legacy city was the territory of the Itinerant Cultivator Alliance. Most of the Yu Yutian itinerant cultivators were gathered there. Naturally, the Fairy of 7 Emotions appeared in this area as well. Soon Liu found the Fairy of 7 Emotions in a brothel. Opening brothels, gambling dens, collecting human desires and distractions. Is this the cultivation path of Fairy 7 Emotions? Interesting. After finding the person, Liu was no longer in a hurry. Liu found a restaurant in Tianji City and ordered some food and wine. As he drank, he waited for the right time to create an opportunity. As a connate numinous treasure, the river diagram was born with the Tao of grand simplicity, allowing it to control fate. After testing my providence, I happen to have some free time, so I'll use this opportunity to study fate. Fairy Tai of the river diagram was good friends with Yu Xinxiao and Qin Yunzi. For countless years, he had been thinking of ways to avenge Qin Yunzi. He could be considered one of Shi Xian's elders. Liu didn't intend to wrestle with He Tuesday. He just wanted to study it, and he wasn't trying to snatch the Tao of destiny. So, there was naturally no need for a conflict. The process of order's operation is fate. Thus, fate has arrived. Although Liu's avatar was only in the immortal soul stage, the path of cultivation in this world still followed the path of order and matter. It wasn't difficult to slightly change the order of some things. With a flick of his finger, someone's gambling luck dropped drastically in the gambling den. F***CK. You can lose a pair of sky cards? A man in a brocade robe was dumbfounded as he watched his pair of sky cards being completely dominated by the dealer's 3 points and 6 points. He lost 10,000 inferior-grade spirit stones in an instant. I don't believe it. Again. He touched his storage bag and found that there were no more spirit stones in it. The man in the brocade robe gritted his teeth and took out an ancient token. This is the entrance token of a cave abode in the western wilderness. It's worth 1,000,000 spirit stones. Young Master Zhang, this thing. The dealer in the gambling den saw the token and shook his head speechlessly. Young Master Zhang, this thing, we can't evaluate it. Why don't you take a look at the treasure pavilion? A lousy token worth 1,000,000 spirit stones? What cave abode entrance? Who knew if it was real or fake? What? You don't want it? Who do you think I am? Do you think I'm short of money? If I wasn't short of money, I wouldn't have bet such a treasure to you. Young Master Zhang was enraged, as if he had been greatly insulted. He pointed at the dealer and roared. Someone's causing trouble? Hu Shan, the fairy of 7 emotions, who was cultivating in her room upstairs, heard the commotion downstairs and frowned. I'd like to see who dares to cause trouble here. With a cold snort, Fairy of 7 emotions stepped out of her room and arrived at the gambling den. What's going on? Fairy of 7 emotions was a Jean Dan Grandmaster after all. Her voice carried with it a faint pressure of Jean Dan, causing everyone in the gambling den to freeze. Boss, this young Master Zhang wants to use this as collateral for 1,000,000 spirit stones. The dealer pointed at the ancient token on the table with a helpless expression. Fairy of 7 emotions, who do you think I am? How can I cheat? This is the entrance token of a cave abode in the western wilderness. A cave abode's worth is definitely worth 1,000,000 spirit stones. Young Master Zhang pointed at the token and said to Fairy of 7 emotions. Inside, however, he sneered. You're a Jean Dan, my father is also a Jean Dan, and a middle-grade Jean Dan at that. If I say it's worth 1,000,000 spirit stones, will you admit it or not? Young Master Zhang, I'm afraid you're mistaken about something. Fairy of 7 emotions used the Tao of emotions to form a Jean Dan. How could she not know what young Master Zhang was thinking? With a cold sneer, Hu Shan stretched out her hand and grabbed young Master Zhang. Your father being a Jean Dan and you being a Jean Dan are 2 different things. Wait until you become a Jean Dan, then you can play this game with me. With a wave of her hand, she threw young Master Zhang out of the gambling den. Fairy of 7 emotions, just you wait. After leaving behind a threat, young Master Zhang fled pathetically. Bastard, you dare to blackmail me in my territory? With a cold snort, Hu Shan was still angry. She grabbed the token that young Master Zhang left on the table and was about to throw it out. Just as she grabbed the token, the The 7 emotions' true chi in her body vibrated violently. Is this really a treasure? Fairy of 7 emotions' heart tightened, but her expression didn't change. Casually putting away the token, Fairy of 7 emotions turned and returned to her room upstairs. What is this? Why did it activate my 7 emotions' true chi? Fairy Chi-Ching's true method of 7 emotions and 6 desires was an incomplete cultivation method on a broken jade slip that she accidentally obtained years ago. For many years, Fairy of 7 emotions had been searching for information about this technique, to see if she could find the next level, forming a Jin Dan, increasing lifespan by 600. But a low-grade Jin Dan has no hope of reaching the primordial spirit. Her lifespan was decreasing day by day, but there was no way forward. This kind of torture was enough to make Fairy 7 emotions extremely anxious. Is this token related to my technique? Surprised and happy, Fairy of 7 emotions hurriedly channeled her 7 emotions' true chi into the token. Hum! With a buzzing sound, the token turned into a ray of rainbow light, merging into Fairy of 7 emotions' sea of consciousness. As long as the human heart does not die, the inner demons will not be extinguished. Inner Demon Tao, 7 emotions, 6 desires, golden body. Gathering the 7 emotions and 6 desires of all living beings, immortality and longevity. A mysterious technique appeared in Fairy of 7 emotions' mind. Fairy of 7 emotions was scared out of her wits when she saw the technique's information. Golden Immortal? Inner Demon Tao True Inheritance, 7 emotions, 6 desires, 13 Tao True Inheritance that leads directly to the Golden Immortal Tao True Inheritance? Seeing the information in her mind, Fairy of 7 emotions turned and ran. After getting this from Zhang Fuguei, if she didn't run and he came back for revenge, wouldn't she be dead for sure? Fate is truly mysterious. Liu saw that the thread of fate on Fairy of 7 emotions' body had undergone a huge change. Originally, she was going to die in a treasure hunt in a few decades, but now her fate had changed. When fate changes, so does karma, as expected of the Tao of fate. Chapter 1065. Life and Death, Fortune and Misfortune, Success and Failure are all in fate. After Li Yu's torment, Fairy 7 emotions' fate underwent a huge change. Through the connection of fate, Li Yu saw countless future developments and fates for Fairy 7 emotions. Fate is the process of order. For the entire world, from birth to end, this is the inevitable fate. This is the origin of destiny. Li Yu looked in the direction that Fairy Chi-Ching had left in, and a smile appeared on his face. However, there are many different kinds of fates for a person. This is the fate of the big picture, the details are uncertain. In Li Yu's eyes, he saw that in Fairy Chi-Ching's future, there would also be calamities and tribulations, the rise and fall of fortune, the entanglement of karma, merit and karma. No wonder the Tao of Fate, also known as the Tao of Tai, is called the Khanate Tao. The beginning of all things in the world must be the Khanate Tao. The number of Dayan was 50, and the number of heaven was 49. This world had 49 Khanate Tao. Fusing any one of the 3,000 Taos and turning oneself into the incarnation of that Tao was a Tao fusing golden immortal. But only by fusing the 2 Khanate Taos and evolving into one's own 3,000 Taos could one prove one's destiny. As for eternity, that would mean severing the 2 Khanate Taos. Let the 3,000 Taos originate from oneself and not from the world. If the 3,000 Taos originate from oneself, one could transcend the world and prove eternity. In essence, the great Tao of this world is somewhat similar to my Tao of order and matter. My Tao is also to turn myself into the source of all matter and order. However, Li Yu's path of training eventually returned to nothingness and chaos, returning to the state before matter and order were born. So, the road is still long. The fate that was tested on Fairy Chiching was just a trivial matter in the world of cultivation. Liu had been tricking people, bestowing opportunities, and he would continue to do so in the future. Liu had already tampered with the talisman Fairy's 7 emotions fused with. Everything that happened to her fate would be recorded, so there was no need to keep an eye on it. My clone should focus on cultivation. If you want to cause trouble, let the main body do it. With a flash, Liu's doppelganger instantly broke through space and returned to Penglai Island to continue his closed-door cultivation. As for Liu's main body, it began to toss and turn again. This guy is very interesting. In the chaotic untainted land, Liu's main body observed the lost Tao chaos hole along the way and also obtained some incomplete great Tao laws. In the chaotic untainted land, Liu found a very interesting guy. This was a silent and gloomy void. There were no stars or broken continent. The surroundings were filled with countless lost Tao and chaos. Liu had originally collected some incomplete heaven-earth laws from these lost Tao chaos holes when he suddenly made a new discovery. In this void shrouded by the lost Tao chaos hole, there were 3 flourishing and full of vitality greater worlds. In the middle of these 3 greater worlds there was a blood-red giant tree. Roots extended from the giant tree and penetrated these 3 greater worlds. Every leaf of the giant tree was filled with thick blood, the smell of money, the decay of power, and the killing of battles. Countless tree roots extended into the core origin space of the 3 greater worlds, swallowing and plundering, absorbing nutrients to support itself. Under the giant blood-red tree, a beautiful woman with silver-gray hair and beautiful appearance was sitting cross-legged with her back against the tree trunk. She wore a light golden dress and her eyes were tightly closed, as if she was in a trance. A mass of auspicious cloud rushed out of the woman's head. The cloud was circular with a square hole in the middle, like a huge copper coin. The Tao of Heaven is to take from the surplus and make up for the deficiency. The Tao of Man is to take from the deficiency and make up for the surplus. This is the Tao of Man and also the Tao of Plunder. Liu glanced at the giant blood-red tree and smiled. Postnatal plunder the great Tao and use money as a symbol of the great Tao? Although it looked a little strange, on second thought, wasn't money the greatest plunder? Money was worthless in itself and was just an equivalent exchange. However, this worthless thing could be exchanged for everything. If this was not plunder, what was? However, your Tao of plunder is completely robbery and there is no technical content at all. No wonder you can't reach Tao integration. Liu chuckled. Let I tell you what plunder is. With that, Liu waved his hand and an undetectable light silently fell into the mind of the woman in the golden dress under the giant blood-red tree. The woman in the golden dress, who was comprehending the Tao of plunder through the giant blood-red tree, suddenly felt an inexplicable message in her mind. A bank? You can buy anything with a piece of paper without spirit stones? Stock? You can get money by putting your name on it? Lottery? Pyramid scheme? Monopoly? Currency appreciation or depreciation? Is there such a thing? The woman in the golden dress named Kong Fong, who had comprehended the Tao of plunder for countless years, suddenly realized that she hadn't even started on the Tao of plunder yet. Comprehending the Tao incantation that emerged in her mind, Kong Fong felt that every word was a gem and every operation was the perfect embodiment of the Tao of plunder. My Tao is complete. My Tao is complete. Such a brilliant Tao of plunder was perfectly in line with the laws of heaven and earth. As long as she practiced this Tao and deeply comprehended it, it would be a piece of cake for her to integrate with the Tao of plunder. But where did this information come from? No one in this world had ever proven the Tao of plunder. Naturally, there couldn't be someone like the Tao of plunder. However, without the Tao of plunder, who could have such a deep understanding of the Tao of plunder? Could it be that I suddenly had a flash of inspiration and was enlightened? Even Kong Fong didn't believe this. Such a profound Tao, such a perfect operation, it was simply unheard of. It was simply not something he could imagine. No matter what's going on, it's a good thing for me. No Tao ancestor would be interested in the postnatal Tao, and no one would scheme against it. Then, I'll take it as an opportunity. Unable to figure out the reason, Kong Fong was too lazy to think more. She focused on comprehending these Tao incantations and strived to attain the Tao of plunder as soon as possible. Young girl, you don't have to plunder Tao of plunder to have such a deep understanding. Liu recalled his life before transmigrating and shook his head speechlessly. After seeing these methods, you will naturally have the same understanding as plundering Tao of plunder. Of course, this was just an episode. Liu cast his gaze into the depths of the chaotic primitive world. The Khanate Time Tao's Khanate Spiritual Treasure Universe Light Bell, the Khanate Space Tao's Khanate Spiritual Treasure Universe Cauldron, and the Doom Tao's Primordial Chaos Golden Dipper. These things are all in the chaotic primitive world. Chapter 1066. This is the Cave of Time. After tormenting Kong Fong, Liu had only done it on the spur of the moment. He still needed to get down to business in the primordial chaos. Releasing his soul, Liu sensed the abnormality of the space-time power here. He immediately knew that this was the birthplace of the Khanate numinous treasure, the cosmic light bell. Taking a step forward, Liu silently arrived at the Cave of Time. Although it was called the Hole of Time, this hole was not much smaller than an ordinary Greater Thousand World. Looking into the depths of the cave, Liu smiled and shook his head when he saw the Khanate numinous treasure birthed in the crystal wall of time. It's clearly a Khanate numinous treasure, but it was born at the wrong time. In this world, many golden immortals were formed from Khanate numinous treasures. For example, Tao Ancestor Great Yi's River Diagram, Tao Ancestor Life and Death Book, Tao Ancestor Zenith Heaven's Merit Exquisite Pagoda, and Tao Ancestor Great Void's Great Void Mirror. These Tao Ancestors were the roots of Khanate numinous treasures. Once a Khanate numinous treasure was born, it was born with a great Tao, a golden immortal Tao Ancestor. Their origins were high and their foundations were deep. However, if a golden immortal Tao ancestor born from a Khanate numinous treasure wanted to improve and fuse with the opposite great Tao to attain creation, he could only leave his true spirit and reincarnate. Leaving his true body and reincarnating his true spirit was the most dangerous moment. Which cultivator who coveted this great Tao would let go of such an opportunity? Having a Khanate great Tao and a Khanate numinous treasure at the same time was simply too wonderful. Compared to those Khanate numinous treasures that have already been born and become golden immortals, this cosmic light bell is more miserable. The universal light bell that had yet to be fully nurtured had no chance of being born. Liu looked at the cosmic light bell in the depths of the Cave of Time and shook his head with a sigh. In this world, the ancestral dragon has fused with the Khanate great Tao of the universe. As a result, the extreme universe cauldron has no chance of being born. Furthermore, the cosmic light bell is also the ancestral dragon's target. With time and space as one and the universe as one, the ancestral dragon could attain creation. If old Peacock had not hidden the tracks of the cosmic light bell and the river diagram concealed the heavenly secrets, why would we wait until now? You have already been taken away by the ancestral dragon. In the future, this cosmic light bell would be used by the old Peacock, the river diagram, and the book of life and death to trick people. Not only did he give Shi Xian an opportunity, but he also tricked the ancestral Gragon, making him unable to comprehend the Tao of time. Instance Millennium Opportunity only allowed Shi Xian to save a period of time for cultivation. Was there a need to scam him? Who's better than I? Shaking his head with a smile, Liu stepped into the Cave of Time. Ripples of time rippled over, and the flow of time accelerated rapidly. 1,000 years passed in an instant. Every instant had hundreds of thousands of years passing by. Fortunately, this is only a divine ability and not the acceleration of time in the entire universe. Otherwise, I wouldn't dare to come. Liu planned to stay in this world for 100 years because the crisis of the origin world was imminent. If all this time passed in an instant, then the losses would be huge. Ignoring these rapid fluctuations of time, Liu leisurely walked forward, as if he was taking a leisurely stroll in the vast and mighty flow of time. For Liu, the river of time could be reversed, sped up, or stopped at will, so these fluctuations of time naturally had no effect on him. Roar, in front of the cave of time, a huge dragon-shaped beast that seemed to span the entire void was roaring in the void. As its huge body twisted, endless ripples of time rippled out. This was the Torch Dragon. Day when you open your eyes, night when you close them, winter when you inhale, summer when you exhale. This was the Torch Dragon. The Time Dragon. Letting the Torch Dragon cover up the fluctuations of time of the cosmic light bell is indeed very suitable. Even if there were fluctuations of time in this cave of time, at most, it would only discover the Torch Dragon that was about to pass through the 5 decay of heaven and man. It would not be able to sense the existence of the cosmic light bell. The few golden immortals very tacitly tricked the ancestral Gragon. Sure enough, it was done flawlessly. Looking up at the Torch Dragon in front of him, Liu sighed again. Everyone below the golden immortal realm is an ant. In the future, this Torch Dragon that has cultivated to the 5 decay of heaven and man with great difficulty will be treated as a chess piece, triggering a tribulation of the Tao heart and directly turning into ashes. Of course, Big Boss Li was not a benevolent saint. He did not care whether the Torch Dragon lived or died. But it's more fun to play a game. Taking a step forward, Liu's figure drifted through the endless ripples of time and silently landed on the Torch Dragon's head. Roar! Cut it out! The Torch Dragon suddenly realized that a person had appeared on top of its head. Just as it was about to roar, it heard Liu's soft shout and an aura that was above heaven and earth pressed down on its head. As soon as it roared, the Torch Dragon hurriedly stopped and trembled all over. It obediently prostrated itself on the ground, not daring to move at all. Although a primordial beast like the Torch Dragon did not have high intelligence, it naturally knew how powerful this terrifying aura that was like the might of the heavens was. "You're quite obedient." Liu smiled and reached out to pat the Torch Dragon's head. "In that case, I'll give you a chance." He reached out and grabbed, and the Torch Dragon's huge body instantly shrank, turning into a small red snake and landing in Liu's hand. In the world of the desolate Celestial Emperor, there is a foreign immortal king called Red King. His true form is a time beast, and his cultivation of the Tao of time is very powerful. With a wave of his hand, Liu put the Torch Dragon into the resource vault. So, I'll refer to Red King's power and combine it with the Torch Dragon's innate ability to make you into an immortal king. According to the standards of this world, creating an immortal king should be about the same combat strength as a golden immortal, right? I wonder if an existence like an immortal king can appear in this world? Liu smiled with interest. In essence, the path of an immortal king was also the path of laws, and Red King was the embodiment of the Tao of time. However, unlike the nascent soul of this world, the path of an immortal king was to merge the soul, body, and laws into one, carving the Tao of time into the body and soul. This world also has a path of martial Tao with an immortal body. The Tao ancestor of the great Tao of strength is also a martial Tao cultivator. Moreover, this void universe is still in its nascent stage, so it's more inclusive. It should be able to accept an immortal king system like the Torch Dragon, right? In any case, it was just an experiment. If the Torch Dragon was not accepted by heaven and earth and was annihilated by the heavenly tribulation, then he would just snatch it back and continue with the next experiment. In any case, Liu had a lot of power systems in his hands. If he experimented with them one by one, there would always be a suitable one. Come out! With a wave of his hand, Liu released the reconstructed torch dragon. Rumble! A violent rumble sounded between heaven and earth, and the countless worlds in the void universe shook together. Time surged like water. The enormous torch dragon's body became even larger. Its entire body was no longer corporeal, and it had become a mighty long river of time that ran through heaven and earth. Tao integration? Golden immortal Tao integration. The phenomenon manifested by the long river of time made countless mighty figures in this world jump up in shock. Looks like the experiment was a success. Liu laughed strangely. Haha. Let's play big. Chapter 1067. Tao Fusion? Someone has fused with the Tao of Time? All the golden immortals and Tao ancestors in the multiverse were dumbfounded by the sudden turn of events. No one in this world had ever cultivated the Tao of Time, and no one had ever heard of a cultivator with the Tao of Time. How had someone managed to do so? What in the world was going on? Could it be the universal light bell? The Tao ancestor of 5 elements, the Tao ancestor of life and death, and the Tao ancestor of Tai all knew about the existence of the universal light bell and had left a backup plan to trick others. They all hurriedly released their minds to sense the situation in the cave of time. The universal light bell is still there? And it hasn't even finished nurturing? Then, who's fusing with the Tao? Just as Old Peacock and the other 2 were bewildered, a huge figure appeared on the vast river of time in the void. Roar! A colossal torch dragon stirred on the river of time, stirring up ripples in its wake. A torch dragon? Can a torch dragon fuse with the Tao? At this moment, the countless people who saw this torch dragon were all dumbfounded. How had it fused with the Tao when it didn't even have intelligence? Who says you can't fuse with the Tao if you don't have brains? The Tao is the Tao. What does the Tao need intelligence for? The less intelligent it is, the more in line with the essence of the Tao. Liu laughed uproariously. It was a bit too much, but wasn't it more interesting? Roar! At this moment, a resounding dragon roar resounded in the void. Within the true dragon great world, a gigantic, boundless dragon's body burst forth with a crystal-clear light. Space seemed to transform into a curtain of water as the colossal dragon traversed endless space and rushed to the torch dragon's side. This was the ancestral dragon. After fusing with the Tao of space, the ancestral dragon had been attempting to fuse with the Tao of time, and ascend to the creation realm. However, someone had fused with the Tao of time in advance for no apparent reason, and by a brainless torch dragon at that. How could the ancestral dragon endure this? Beast, die. An enormous dragon claw tore through space with the power to shatter and collapse it, viciously slammed down on the torch dragon. Tao integration was a process. Even though it wouldn't take too long, it was still a process. As long as this process was interrupted, as long as this beast was killed, the ancestral dragon would still have a chance to merge with the Tao of time. Otherwise, all his plans would be for naught. We can't let the ancestral Gragon kill Torch Dragon. At this moment, the Old Peacock, the He-Tu, and the Book of Life and Death made their decision. Although the Great Tao of Space and the Great Tao of Time did not conflict with the 3 of them at all, the 3 of them did not have any conflicts. However, the ancestral dragon was an ally of their enemy. The friend of my enemy is naturally my enemy. Schwa! A 5-colored brilliance shot up into the sky. The 5 elements circulated and the 5 colors intertwined. This was the Old Peacock's innate 5 colors divine light. The 5-colored divine light swept through everything. Once the ancestral dragon was brushed by the 5-colored divine light, it would definitely be brushed down. Even if the five-colored divine light couldn't suppress the ancestral dragon, it would at least delay him for a few moments. After a few moments, Torch Dragon would complete his Tao integration and there would be no need to think about anything else. Heaven and earth will eventually be destroyed. A streak of rainbow light shot out, bringing with it the power of the return of heaven and earth, and the return of all things to silence as it swept toward the five-colored divine light. Taofather Nirvana had taken action. The five elements and Nirvana were great Taos of opposite ends. Moreover, Nirvana countered the five elements. Boom! The five-colored divine light and the Nirvana divine light collided fiercely, erupting with an earth-shattering boom. The void cracked and countless stars were reduced to dust. Some worlds in the void near where the two lights collided were instantly blasted hundreds of millions of kilometers away by the shockwave. The power of a golden immortal was monstrously terrifying. Torch Dragon's Tao integration, Destiny's blessing. With the old peacock blocked, the He too immediately took action. In the void, a mysterious scroll spun slightly, and a beam of destiny landed on the Torch Dragon, wanting to protect it during its Tao integration. Intercept the heavenly secrets. A power that could intercept the heavenly secrets and destiny flew over, blocking the He too's blessing of destiny. This was Taofather Nirvana's ally, Ananda Tathagata, who had fused with the Tao of fate interception. The two streaks of light collided and disappeared without a sound. The power of destiny and the power of fate interception are really environmentally friendly when they fight. Liu could not help but exclaim when he saw the power of destiny and the power of fate interception dissipate silently without destroying anything. Both sides had people interfering. With this delay, the ancestral dragon's spatial annihilation claw had already hit the Torch Dragon. The ancestral dragon, who had fused with the Tao of space, ignored distance and did not have the problem of speed. Logically speaking, he should have hit the Torch Dragon when he attacked. However, the Torch Dragon, who had the power of time, could affect the time around him even if he had not completely fused with the Tao. It was only at this moment that the ancestral dragon's attack broke through the ripples of time and hit the Torch Dragon. Boom! With an earth-shattering bang, blood splattered, scales and broken bones flew everywhere. The dust has settled. Upon seeing this, all of the attacking golden immortals came to a halt. There was no suspense. On the verge of Tao integration, their essence spirits had already fused with the great Tao and could not protect themselves. Torch Dragon was bound to die after suffering such a blow. Forget it. It's not a good thing to let a brainless beast be on the same level as me. Old Peacock shook his head and retracted his five-colored divine light, planning to turn and leave. Roar! At this moment, a furious roar sounded. In the shattered void, the Torch Dragon's huge figure appeared in front of everyone again. Its body was covered in wounds, and many places revealed ghastly white bones. Clearly, the Torch Dragon had suffered serious injuries under the ancestral dragon's spatial annihilation. But why was it only injured? Shouldn't it have been reduced to ashes after suffering a blow from the ancestral dragon? Why was it only injured? Because it's different from you. Liu laughed strangely. The body of an immortal king is not like yours. Its ability to take hits is simply ridiculously strong. Moreover, rebirth from a drop of blood is also a basic configuration. Roar! With another furious roar, the Torch Dragon's injuries were completely healed in an instant, and there were no more injuries on its body. Boom! A gigantic snake tail shattered the endless void and lashed out at the ancestral Gragon. A beast will always be a beast. Apart from brute force, what else can you do? Pursing his lips in disdain, the ancestral dragon waved his claws and set up an endless spatial barrier in front of him. So close is the end of the world. How can a beast like you hit me with an endless spatial barrier? Boom! With a sweep of its tail, a boundless force shattered the spatial barrier and lashed at the ancestral dragon's body. How is this possible? Despite his powerful body, the ancestral dragon was sent flying hundreds of millions of kilometers, spewing out blood. Roar! The river of time flashed, and the torch dragon's figure instantly caught up to the ancestral dragon. Bam! Another sweep of its tail sent the ancestral dragon flying with a scream. Bam! Ah! Bam! Ah! As the golden immortals and Tao ancestors exchanged glances, the ancestral dragon was being beaten like a punching bag by the torch dragon. Then, did the torch dragon succeed in its Tao merge? A beast can Tao merge? You're asking me, but who am I supposed to ask? Alright, Liu thought, what's wrong with a beast Tao merge? Next time, I'll find a stone to Tao merge for you to see. Chapter 1068. What was Tao convergence? It was to transform oneself into a great Tao of heaven and earth. From then on, I am the great Tao and the great Tao is me. Cultivators naturally needed great wisdom, perseverance, courage, a firm Tao heart, a pure soul, and a severed distracting thoughts to find their true nature. Only then could they accommodate the great Tao. However, a beast without intelligence had no distracting thoughts. It had always been its true nature. Originally, such a beast had no way of cultivating apart from its own growth, nor was there any possibility of Tao convergence. However, I've given it the foundation for the Tao integration stage, so it can naturally fuse with the Tao. Otherwise, how can connate spirit treasures Tao convergence? Connate spirit treasures fused with a great Tao the moment they were born. The moment they were born was the moment of Tao convergence, which was also the moment of the birth of intelligence. With Liu's accumulation in the great Tao of time and the cosmic light bell that was being nurtured next to it as a reference, it wasn't strange that the torch dragon had the foundation for Tao convergence. I was also experimenting. I didn't even know if there was a chance of success. Fortunately, the experiment succeeded. Liu looked up at the horizon and saw the torch dragon chasing after the ancestral dragon to beat it up. Blood spurted out of its mouth, scales scattered, and it howled in agony. As for the other golden immortals, they had already left. The torch dragon had already reached Tao convergence, so it was a foregone conclusion. Who would have the time to get involved in a battle between two beasts? Take your time fighting. In terms of combat strength, the torch dragon that I modified is incomparable to ordinary golden immortals. Although the torch dragon didn't have intelligence and couldn't speak of any great Tao, it had already integrated the great Tao of time into itself. Every move it made was a great Tao. Coupled with its immortal king-level body and combat strength, the torch dragon's strength was considered top-notch among golden immortals who had fused with a great Tao. Alright, it's too torturous to have all future cultivators of the great Tao of time worship a beast as their ancestral master. Liu shook his head with a smile. That's why I'll bring the torch dragon back. It's less than 100 years, don't be nervous. Waving a hand, Liu ignored the battle between the torch dragon and the ancestral dragon and walked into the depths of the cavern of time. The precious tree of time? It even bore the fruit of time? Liu smiled and nodded when he saw a small tree growing in a place that looked like a pool of time. There were a few fruits hanging on the tree. For ordinary cultivators, eating a fruit of time would allow them to comprehend time, which is very beneficial to their cultivation of the Tao of time. Unfortunately, I don't like it. There was even a pile of heavenly immortal fruits in the garden of the immortal abode, which could allow one to become an immortal after eating just one of them. Naturally, Liu would not be interested in such things. In the future, this thing will fall into the hands of the Penglai sect. Let's leave it here for now and find an opportunity to let the people from Penglai come here to gain experience. Ignoring the precious tree of time, Liu stepped into the depths of the cave of time and arrived near the cosmic light bell. The bell was still being nurtured, but Torch Dragon had already fused with the great Tao of Time. No matter how much he nurtured it, there was no way he could become a golden immortal Tao ancestor. In the original fate, you were similarly unable to be nurtured and become a golden immortal Tao ancestor. You've only become an idle connate spirit embryo in Shixian's hands. Li Yu smiled and extended a finger to tap the cosmic light bell. I've made a copy of the great Tao of Time that Torch Dragon came into contact with when he fused with the Tao. I'll give it to you. Time flowed like water into the cosmic light bell. With the complete great Tao of Time, you're actually a Tao ancestor of time. As long as I take Torch Dragon away, you can immediately fuse with the Tao. Retracting his finger, Li Yu smiled. Taking away a Tao ancestor of time and returning a Tao ancestor of time is more appropriate. No need to thank me. With a wave of his hand, Li Yu leisurely stepped out of the cave of time. You're still fighting? You're really in the mood. A golden immortal Tao ancestor had already fused with a great Tao. If it weren't for the great difference in strength, it wouldn't be easy to kill him. Torch Dragon was stronger than Ancestral Dragon, but it would still be more difficult to kill him. Apart from the two of them, no one else was interested in the two great Taos of time and space, nor did they have any enmity. So, if you can't kill him, then take your time. None of the Golden Immortals paid any attention to the battle between the twin dragons of time and space. Li Yu couldn't be bothered with them either. Judging from Torch Dragon's Tao fusion just now, if I create all sorts of Tao fusion Golden Immortals, I really can gain all sorts of great Taos. But this is a paradox. Only by mastering this great Tao could he create a corresponding Tao fusion Golden Immortal. The 5 elements were wind, lightning, light, darkness, and spacetime. Li Yu had already cultivated these basic great Taos to the point of chaos and disorder. It wouldn't be difficult for him to create a Tao fusion Golden Immortal. However, Li Yu was still far from mastering the other great Taos, such as the connate 5 virtues: karma, fate, reincarnation, slaughter, destruction, doom, calamity, and so on. I'd better go take a look at the Ultimate Universe Cauldron first. At least I can gain something from it. With a sway of his body, Li Yu soundlessly traversed the endless void and instantly arrived at the Ultimate Universe Cauldron. This was still the chaotic wilderness, filled with energy storms and lost Tao chaos holes. However, there was a region of space that was extremely stable. This was the Ultimate Universe Cauldron. The Ancestral Dragon had merged with the connate space Great Tao, and the Ultimate Universe Cauldron was an unborn connate spirit treasure, so there was no way it could become a Tao fusion Golden Immortal. The Ultimate Universe Cauldron was born at the wrong time. Its level of power is enough for Tao fusion, but with the Ancestral Dragon in its way, it will never have a chance. Unless the Ancestral Dragon dies, or achieves eternity and leaves this world, it will have a chance to be born. With a tap of his finger, a colorless, transparent cauldron that seemed to be made of glass appeared in front of Li Yu. The cauldron's mouth rippled with pure, watery light. However, it wasn't water, but endless space. Within the Ultimate Universe Cauldron, there were countless dimensions and countless small worlds. Through the cauldron's mouth, Li Yu could even see the various lifeforms that lived in these small worlds. There were humans, beasts, and all sorts of demons. I should take a copy of the Space Great Tao of the Ultimate Universe Cauldron as well. With a flick of his finger, he made a copy of the spatial laws contained within the Ultimate Universe Cauldron, and Li Yu looked at the cauldron's mouth. The Ultimate Universe Cauldron is hidden in the endless void, an existence that even the Ancestral Dragon couldn't find. A few important figures who discovered it by chance treated it as a hidden place. Li Yu smiled at the cauldron's mouth, reached out and grabbed 2 items. One was the Chaos Primordial Dipper that emanated the aura of doom, and the other was a ball of formless, clear light. A connate spirit treasure of the connate Tao of Doom. Unfortunately, something happened when it reincarnated. When the apocalypse came, people's hearts were haunted. The Tao of Doom also contained the Tao of mental demons. Thus, the Chaos Primordial Dipper's true spirit reincarnated and was killed by its own mental demons. After extracting a portion of the Tao of Doom from the Chaos Primordial Dipper, Liu casually tossed the Chaos Primordial Dipper back and turned to look at the formless, clear light in his hand. A connate spirit treasure, the Great Void Mirror. It was also a golden immortal Tao ancestor. This isn't the Great Void Realm's true body, but the aura it left behind can also allow me to analyze the Tao of illusion. After analyzing it for a while, Liu tossed the clear light back again. I've gained quite a lot. Liu looked at the ultimate universe cauldron and smiled. Here. I can play another game. Chapter 1069. The struggle in this world is a struggle for the great Tao. In order to fuse two opposing innate Taos, the range of choices was very limited. Thus, conflicts were inevitable. Not many people are fighting for the primordial Chaos Golden Dipper's path of last luck. The primordial Chaos Golden Chalice, whose primordial spirit had been annihilated, was only left with the shell of the primordial spirit embryo. So, I can create a primordial spirit. As for who got tricked, they can only blame their bad luck. He reached out and casually grabbing the remnant soul of a fallen cultivator and throwing it into the Chaos Origin Golden Chalice. Of course, this alone was not enough to fuse the remnant soul with the primeval Dipper. In the chaotic untainted land, there are also worlds that are about to be created. Liu raised his eyes and looked around. He found a world that was still in the state of primordial chaos and was being born in the chaotic world. Back then, stories about traveling to the primeval age, traveling to the primordial chaos, and making friends with Pangu were very popular. He reached out, grabbed the primeval Dipper, and sent it into the greater thousand world that was still in the state of primordial chaos. The 3,000 fiend gods of the chaos are the original incarnations of the 3,000 great Tao. Let the primordial Chaos Golden Dipper be nurtured in this world and nourished by the innate energy. Then, the primordial Chaos Golden Dipper and the primordial Chaos Golden Dipper will fuse into one. The birth of such a great kiliacosm would definitely not give birth to a true connate numinous treasure. However, it was not difficult to nourish the primordial Chaos Golden Dipper. Actually, if I want to comprehend the chaos, studying the greater thousand realms that are about to be born is a very good method. Liu stepped out and came to the side of the great thousand world that was about to be born. He sat cross-legged in the void and comprehended the great thousand world that was being born. The primordial chaos, the birth of heaven and earth. In the chaos of nothingness, the process from nothing to something was naturally worth studying. Unfortunately, it will take more than 1 trillion years for this thing to truly be born. For the sake of my research, I can only accelerate your maturation. With a wave of his hand, the long river of time swept up. The great thousand realms that were being nurtured sped up by billions of times. Gradually, 49 innate Taos were born from the void. Nothingness was the beginning of heaven and earth. Yes, it was called the mother of all creation. The process of the innate Tao's birth was the process of coming into existence from nothing. It was the first order born from the chaos. Then, yin and yang separated, creating heaven and earth. The post-celestial great Tao was born, and all things in the world were born. The 3,000 great Taos were order, and everything in the world was matter. Matter and order intersected, running through heaven and earth. I didn't get a good look at the process of heaven and earth splitting. Rewind and do it again. With a wave of his hand, the river of time flowed in reverse. Everything in this world flowed in reverse, returning to before the creation of the world. Then, it continued to evolve. Rewind, do it again. The birth of matter is a little slow. Hurry up. Was this how the Tao of Doom and Tao of Destruction came about? Apocalypse and destruction had actually run through the entire world from beginning to end, although it was still too early for the world to be destroyed. However, the individuals in the world are constantly being destroyed. Let's stop here and study it carefully. The power of time is indeed suitable for watching movies. Big Boss Lee was watching this world like a movie. If he wanted to rewind, he would rewind, and if he wanted to fast forward, he would fast forward. The birth process of a world naturally has a lot of research value. After studying this thoroughly, when my clone harvests all the laws of heaven and earth in the void universe, I can use these insights to finally complete the evolution of chaos and disorder. Of course, this research process would definitely not take a day or two. This kind of rewinding or fast-forwarding would take a long time. Anyway, the time Tao belonged to Torch Dragon. Fast-forwarding and fast-retreating would consume Torch Dragon's strength. Liu naturally did not care about consumption. As for whether Torch Dragon cult would have any objections, I definitely did not create you for fun. If I don't let you display your value, then why would I spend so much effort? Not doing it? Then I'll find a more obedient one to be the Time Tao ancestor. The universe light bell is still waiting to take over. This seemingly playful action actually had a purpose. How could a cheapskate like Big Boss Lee be generous to such an extent? Not only did Torch Dragon have to be a coolie, but he also had to bring it back when he left. Not a single bit could be wasted. Back then, the crocodile ancestor had been dismantled cleanly. Not a single bit was wasted. Liu's main body was here tormenting a greater thousand world that was about to be born. His clone, who was cultivating in seclusion on Penglai, had also made great progress. After researching for so long, the pressure on my head has finally been relieved a lot. During this period of torment, he had harvested a few great Taos and also obtained many incomplete great Tao laws from the lost Tao chaos hole. In addition, he had studied the birth of a world and had done a lot of research on the 3,000 great Taos of that world. The 3,000 great Taos of a world were naturally only an extension of the 3,000 great Taos of the entire void universe and could not touch the essence. However, for his clone, this was a huge improvement. After studying these laws clearly, I can freely improve my cultivation level. According to the cultivation path of this world, he might not be able to cultivate to the level of a golden immortal Tao ancestor even after spending tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or even millions of years. In this world, Liu only planned to stay for 100 years. He definitely could not slowly waste time like them. So, the cheating mode is on. With a flash, Liu's clone soared into the sky from Penglai Island and stood in the air. I'm going to transcend the tribulation. If you don't want to die, don't come here to die. With a step, Liu's figure instantly rushed out and rushed into the sky. The ancestral master is going to transcend the tribulation? What is he playing at now? Su Jifei looked up at the void and was stunned. You're already an eternal realm existence. What tribulation are you going to transcend? What are you going to do now? A perfected master of our sect is going to transcend the tribulation? Some other Penglai cultivators who did not know the inside story looked up at the sky, their faces full of admiration. When an essence soul expert transcended the tribulation, the Yin spirit would turn into the Yang spirit and become the Yang spirit. This was a grand occasion for their sect. That's His Highness the Crown Prince? The common ancestral master of Penglai and Yingzhou? When Shi Xian saw the figure in the sky, he was shocked and exclaimed, as expected of the reincarnation of the patriarch. It has only been a dozen years, but he has already reached the level of primordial spirit tribulation. It's thunder. It's raining. It's time to collect the clothes. There was a strange cry in the sky. The figure standing proudly in the void stretched out his hand, and there was a loud bang in the sky, and the tribulation lightning crashed down. The lightning was like a dragon, and it crashed down. The fierce and domineering power seemed to shatter the sky. Even from afar, this kind of power made the hearts of the Penglai cultivators tremble. It's only at the level of the 72 earthly thunder? It's not enough at all. Li Yu, who was standing proudly in the void, opened his mouth and swallowed the fierce and domineering tribulation lightning. Wow! He swallowed the tribulation directly? Seeing this scene, countless Penglai cultivators were stunned. What is this? There's something even scarier later. Li Yu smiled and waved his hand. He looked up at the void and shouted, "Let the tribulation come more fiercely!" Boom! The lightning was like rain, and the lightning was like a dragon. The entire sky turned into a sea of lightning. Ancestral Master, this is the act of being struck by lightning? Shi Xian blinked and almost laughed out loud. Chapter 1070. The Essence Soul Tribulation was the Sun Spirit. The Sun Spirit stage required the 4 heavenly tribulations. The 4 heavenly tribulations had 9 stages each time. When the 4 heavenly tribulations were over, the Essence Soul would reside in the void and become a celestial being. Boom! The thunderbolts were like an ocean, rolling like raging tides. This was the first of the 4 heavenly tribulations, the 9 heavens lightning tribulation. The 9 heavenly tribulations were each stronger than the last. From the 72 earthly thunders to the 36 heavenly thunders to the 9 heavens divine thunders. Tribulation transcendence also allows me to obtain the general outline of the heavenly lightning techniques and comprehend the Tao of calamity. Not bad. Li Yu smiled. He reached out and grabbed, and the sea of lightning fell into his hand. Then, under the shocked gazes of countless people, he grabbed the ball of lightning and swallowed it. Eat the heavenly tribulation? The Ancestral Master is eating the heavenly tribulation? Penglai Sect's Grandmaster Jin Dan and Essence Soul Perfected Masters couldn't help but shudder when they saw this. We have to be prepared to die if we want to transcend the heavenly tribulation. We have to fight to the death and tremble in fear. If you do this, we will be under a lot of pressure. Not bad. Not bad. The 72 earthly thunders are indeed something. Come, continue. The first 3 heavenly tribulations were the 72 earthly thunders. It was just that their power kept increasing. Swallowing the heavenly tribulation lightning was obviously showing off. Even if he wanted to use the heavenly tribulation lightning to temper his body and soul, there was no need to swallow it. Boom! Boom! The 9 heavenly tribulations descended one by one. Then, they were all caught and eaten by Li Yu. While using the heavenly tribulation lightning to temper his body and soul, he also took some heavenly tribulation lightning techniques and passed it to his main body so that it could analyze the heavenly tribulation lightning techniques and comprehend the Tao of calamity. After a while, the first heavenly tribulation was officially over. He had already obtained the general outline of the heavenly lightning techniques, but he had only comprehended part of the heavenly tribulation lightning technique. Not enough? Then let's do it again. Li Yu laughed loudly. Then, he triggered another heavenly tribulation. Ah, this is 2 consecutive tribulations? The Penglai disciples below were just about to congratulate the Ancestral Master for successfully transcending the tribulation, when they suddenly saw a drastic change in the weather. Strong winds howled in the sky. They suddenly realized that the Ancestral Master was about to transcend the tribulation again. This was the second tribulation, the soul-severing heavenly wind tribulation. The wind blew from the fontanelle into the 6 bowels, passing through the dantian and the 9 orifices. The bones and flesh dissipated and the body disintegrated. Huff, huff! The wind howled in the sky and the clouds surged. A storm swept up, and it was as if even the void was about to be blown away by the strong winds. However, this was only the outer appearance. The real heavenly tribulation had already fallen on Liu. Samadhi heavenly wind, formless cool breeze, 9 nether cold wind, 6 unity storm. All kinds of wind appeared above Liu's head and poured into his body through the baihui. Decompose, annihilate, dissipate under the blowing of the strange wind, Liu seemed to be dispersing his body and soul and dissolving the foundation of his existence. What an interesting wind tribulation! The heavenly tribulations that Liu had encountered before were almost all thunder tribulations. He rarely saw this kind of wind tribulation. After carefully comprehending it, he found that there was indeed a lot of mystery in it. There is a kind of weathering force in nature. Even mountains and mountains can eventually dissipate under the weathering of time. This kind of wind tribulation is a concentrated explosion of the weathering force. This was not only a tribulation, but also a cultivator's opportunity. Through this weathering force, the impurities in one's body would be removed, and the body and soul would be purified and untainted. Wind is also a kind of natural disaster. In this heavenly tribulation, in addition to the heavenly wind technique outline, there is also the great Tao of disasters. The body and soul of Liu's clone had long been purified, and there was no need for the wind tribulation to purify it. Then let's destroy it. With a thought, the various strange winds that poured into his body instantly disappeared and were all transmitted to the main body, allowing the main body to analyze the true meaning within. In a short while, the 9 wind tribulations had passed. The violent winds dissipated, and the world was clear again. Ancestral Master has passed the second tribulation? Congratulations, Ancestral Master, for passing 2 tribulations in a row. From now on, your yang spirit will be immortal. Seeing the violent winds dissipate, the world was clear, and an ethereal figure stood in the void. The Penglai disciples hurriedly congratulated in unison. It's still early. Since he was going to pass the tribulation, he might as well pass it all at once and study the heavenly tribulation. Boom! There was a loud bang in the void, and endless flames surged, covering the sky and earth. The third tribulation had been triggered. This was the fire tribulation, the 9 flames burning heart tribulation. The true sun fire, the great Frost fire, the cleansing glass fire, the red lotus fire, the underworld fire, the 5 elements true fire, the 7 emotions fire, the invisible divine fire, all kinds of flames descended from the sky. 9 flames burning heart. This 9 was not 9 kinds. 9 was the extreme number, and it represented a lot. At this moment, all kinds of flames fell on Liu's body. They burned the body, burned the soul, burned everything. This was also a heavenly tribulation, and also a form of training. Just like the previous wind tribulation, this fire tribulation also burned the impurities in the body and soul. However, the fire tribulation also had the effect of calcining, training, tempering, and refining the body and soul to become purer and stronger. No wonder so many people in this world are afraid of the heavenly tribulation and avoid it. This kind of training is not something that ordinary people can endure. When a mortal became an immortal, they naturally had to go through the 49 heavenly tribulations and the 5 decrements of heaven and man. They had to be constantly tempered, shed the corruption of the mortal world, and become a pure and flawless connate true spirit. If they couldn't endure this tempering, then they could only die. Since I'm going to train, then I'll train harder. He opened his mouth and sucked. It was as if a black hole had appeared, and the flames in the sky were pulled up by this huge suction force, turning into a fire dragon that continuously rushed into Liu's mouth. Ancestral Master is addicted to the heavenly tribulation. Is the heavenly tribulation really that delicious? How does it taste? A group of junior disciples were full of yearning. Their expressions seemed to be, Ancestral Master, share some with us too. This made the Jin Dan Grandmasters and Immortal Soul Venerables twitch their mouths. Delicious? You'll turn into ashes if you touch a little. Do you want to try? After swallowing the fire tribulation, he let his main body study the heavenly fire spell outline and the true meaning of the fire tribulation. Then, Liu attracted the fourth heavenly tribulation. The fourth heavenly tribulation was the water tribulation. Xianming primordial water, one heavenly primordial water, all kinds of water appeared in the heavenly tribulation. Melt, dissolve. Water was also a disaster, and also a heavenly tribulation. Thousands of water came, corroding, seeping, melting, corroding, all kinds of magical powers exploded in his body. That's not right? This kind of tribulation, if it's an ordinary cultivator, it's impossible to survive. At this moment, Liu realized that his heavenly tribulation was a little too powerful. To Liu this was nothing, but to an ordinary cultivator, this was a tribulation with no chance of survival. The heavenly tribulation is targeted? The better the seedling, the more it needs to be nurtured. But with your method of nurturing, not even 1 out of 10,000 seedlings can survive. Liu shook his head. He also understood that to the heavenly Tao, it didn't matter if 1 billion of them died, as long as one was chosen. I don't need your nurturing. He opened his mouth again and swallowed, and the Tianshui light was instantly swept away. He had already passed the fourth heavenly tribulation, and with such ease, he was simply a legend in the cultivation world. Ancestral Master, you're cheating. Su Zhifei's mouth twitched. You're an eternal existence. Isn't passing the heavenly tribulation as easy as eating and drinking? Chapter 1071. After transcending 4 tribulations, I can entrust my essence soul to the void and become a heaven immortal. Liu smiled and looked at the void. When I become a heaven immortal, if divine light appears, it can also show some signs of auspicious clouds. It seems. I can tease you guys. He reached out and patted the top of his head. His pure yang essence soul transformed into a beam of light that shot into the sky. It rushed into the endless void and rushed to the peak of the great Tao that did not exist in the real world. The peak of the great Tao, where the Tao was the source of the 3,000 great Tao. It existed and did not exist. When a cultivator became a heaven immortal, their essence soul would be entrusted to the void. This void was the place where the Tao was located. Unfortunately, this thing is just a projection of one's mind. It does not really exist. This is just the projection of the 3,000 great Tao in the cultivator's mind. Liu had planned to take away the 3,000 great Tao while his essence soul was entrusted to the void. Now that he had truly experienced entrusting one's essence soul to the void, he already understood that there was no such thing as where the Tao was. The Tao was everywhere. The so-called entrusting one's essence soul to the void did not mean hiding one's essence soul in a certain void. Instead, it allowed one's essence soul to resonate with the Tao. The projection of the Tao in the essence soul looked like the void where the essence soul was entrusted to the peak of the great Tao. In essence, there was no such place. The great Tao laws will be released at the level of cultivation. When one becomes a heaven immortal, their essence soul will resonate with the great Tao. As long as the great Tao is not destroyed, as long as the connection with the great Tao is not severed, even if one's body and soul are destroyed, a heaven immortal can use this to be reborn. Since he could not obtain the complete 3,000 great Tao laws, he would first sense it. As long as he could obtain a portion of the great Tao's true meaning. When the chaos was first born, yin and yang appeared. Heaven and earth were born together. Taiji and yin-yang formed the great Tao. The 5 elements and 8 trigrams proved the heaven immortal. Posturing had been deeply ingrained into Liu's bones and had become an instinct. If he did not recite a poem at this time, wouldn't it be too undignified? The long song was vast and mighty, resounding throughout the 9 heavens. A brilliant light appeared above Li Yu's head. Heaven, earth, wind, thunder, water, fire, and fire. The trigrams intersected, once again, the Kane Tai 64 hexagram. As the trigrams circulated, a formless and immaterial power of destiny circulated endlessly within them. Tao of Tai? Seeing this scene, Su Jifei was stunned. Ancestral Master, what are you playing at? What happened to the promised Great Scarlet Sky Tao Ancestor Dark Yellow? Great Scarlet Heavens Dark Yellow Tao Ancestor, Qingwei Heavens Primordial Beginning Tao Ancestor, and Yu Yutian Numinous Treasure Tao Ancestor were the 3 great proofs of eternity, existences that transcended the world. As for the Daluo Tao Ancestor, who had attained Tao with the primordial spiritual treasure, 33-story Xian Huang Exquisite Pagoda of Heaven and Earth, he still dared not use the name Xian Huang. He could only call himself Daluo Tao Ancestor. Why would someone like you play with the Tao of Tai? That was He Tu's job. Do you want to fight with He Tu for the grand Tao of Destiny? After knowing that the Patriarch was Tao Ancestor Black Yellow of Great Scarlet Sky, Su Jifei also asked Yu Shinshao about the stories of these great figures. He, who thought that he knew the inside story, was suddenly frightened by Li Yu's celestial phenomenon. In response, Li Yu said, "You're thinking too much." As the Book of Changes 8 trigrams circulated, there was suddenly a change. Boom! With a loud boom, the Book of Changes 8 trigrams instantly disappeared, and 5 brilliant rays of light soared into the sky. The 5 elements and 5 colors reinforced and restrained each other, circulating endlessly. Ah! It became the 5 elements' great Tao again? Thinking of his ancestral master's relationship with Tao Ancestor 5 elements, Su Jifei nodded. The ancestral master would definitely not snatch the 5 elements' great Tao. After all, Tao Ancestor 5 elements was his disciple. In the void, the 5 elements circulated, and the 5-colored divine light circulated endlessly. In an instant, another change occurred. The 5-colored divine light instantly merged into one, turning into a cloud of Xian Huang Qi. Xian Huang circulated, and all living things were born. It was as if a world had evolved in the Xian Huang Qi, the cycle of life and death, the circulation of the 5 virtues, the formation, residence, destruction, and emptiness. All kinds of scenes were constantly evolving. Xian Huang Qi. This is the ancestral master's fundamental great Tao. However, before Su Jifei could finish his praise, the Xian Huang Qi underwent another change. Boom! Yin and Yang separated, and the black and white Taiji Yin and Yang fish slowly spread out in the air. Yin and Yang separated, and light and darkness alternated, just like the beginning of the world. It became the Tao of Yin and Yang again? All right. Su Jifei had already lowered his head and stopped looking. It was not strange for the ancestral master to cause a commotion. It's still too far away. Li Yu sighed. He had not completely grasped the laws of heaven and earth of this world, and merely a projection of the great Tao at the moment of celestial being was not enough to complete the evolution. Thus, Li Yu's celestial being vision finally stopped at the yin-yang phase. Prime clear Yu Yu's yin-yang 2 elements divine light. It seemed that this was the great Tao of yin and yang that Yu Yu had passed down. When this scene appeared, it immediately alarmed the divine sovereign great world's divine sovereign emperor. Tao Ancestor Nirvana wanted to merge the great Tao of yin and yang. In ancient times, he had colluded with the ancestral dragon and Ananda Relai to take advantage of Qingyun Zi's reincarnation to launch an attack, causing Qingyun Zi's death. As Tao Ancestor Nirvana's henchman, the Divine Sovereign was responsible for keeping an eye on Yu Yutian for Tao Ancestor Nirvana, specifically killing cultivators who cultivated Yin and Yang technique. Liu's yin-yang dual qi scene was immediately discovered by the Divine Sovereign, who had been keeping an eye on Yu Yutian. There are still people cultivating the Tao of yin and yang in Yu Yutian? That inheritance hasn't been wiped out yet? The Divine Sovereign sneered. A mere early-stage celestial being cultivator doesn't need me to personally take action. With a wave of his hand, a divine decree flew out, Rakshasa, make a trip to you great world and deal with that newly ascended celestial being cultivator. Yes. In the divine sovereign great world, fresh flowers filled the sky in a gorgeous palace. Amid the holy radiance, a white-clothed goddess stepped out of the palace. Lotus flowers bloomed under her feet, endlessly appearing and disappearing. The white-clothed goddess soared into the sky, and flew towards Yu Yutian with the sound of hymns. Tsk. Instead of coming himself, they sent a divine Tao celestial immortal who had survived 2 Devas' blight? You're looking down on I far too much. Liu shook his head with a smile. Even if you came yourself, I wouldn't bother to take action, much less a mere 2-stage celestial being? With a flick of his finger, Liu's free-hired thug received another mission. A foreign divine cultivator has invaded our realm. Emperor Yama, who was cleaning up otherworldly demons near the world's boundary, was shocked to hear the seal of Samsara's notification. A foreign divine cultivator? How preposterous! How dare you snatch the power of faith from this emperor's territory? They're courting death. Faith power was the foundation of a god. If the people of this realm worshipped this foreign god, how could the gods of the underworld survive? A foreign divine cultivator invading the realm was an invasion. This was an enemy that wouldn't rest until one of them was dead. Hymns drifted through the air as heavenly flowers rained down. Dazzling divine splendor flooded the area. A white-clothed goddess leisurely walked over, stepping on an endless lotus flower. Damn it! Emperor Yama was even more enraged when he saw this scene. Just this scene alone was more welcomed by the believers than the eerie underworld. She was clearly here to steal his business. Die. The enraged Emperor Yama didn't hesitate. He grabbed the seal of Samsara and smashed it at the white-clothed goddess with all his might. How terrifying was the power of a 3-stage seal of Samsara! Ah! The country bumpkin, who had just arrived near Yu Yutian and was about to descend upon Yu Yutian as a god, was struck by the seal of Samsara. However, the Rakshasa goddess didn't even have time to act cool before she was smashed to death. Chapter 1072. Damn it! When the Rakshasa goddess was smashed to death by Emperor Yama's seal, the divine emperor, who'd been keeping an eye on the matter, flew into a rage. Bastards! Why are you gods of the underworld interfering in this matter? The divine emperor was naturally aware of the Yin gods of the underworld that had appeared in Yu Yutian. However, Yin gods of the underworld existed in many other worlds, so it was normal for them to appear in Yu Yutian. The gods of the underworld only cared about souls and didn't care about the outside world. But why were these gods of the underworld attacking as soon as they saw each other? How dare a few sky immortal realm Yin gods of the underworld act so impudently in front of me? The Tao ancestor of life and death had disappeared for countless years, and the emperors of the 9 nether plane had been infiltrated by various big shots. The emperor of Fengdu had pledged allegiance to Moth Phoenix, the emperor of Dark Sea had pledged allegiance to the Tao ancestor of death, and the emperor of 9 treasures had become a Buddhist disciple. The 9 nether plane was no longer in the era of the Tao ancestor of life and death. The divine emperor snorted angrily and stepped out of the divine emperor great realm. I'd like to see what kind of ability you have to interfere in this matter. This was the will of Tao Patriarch Nirvana, the will of Tao Patriarch Nirvana. Who would dare stop him? Who could stop him? Vast divine light soared into the sky, and endless holy light swept through the world. The divine emperor stepped forward, and a will to enslave all life spread out. The Tao of enslavement was the Divine Emperor's Tao. It was only an acquired great Tao, and the Divine Emperor hadn't reached Tao convergence yet. He was only a half-step golden immortal. Yu Shunshao has left Yu Yutian in search of an opportunity to reach Tao convergence. The most powerful beings in Yu Yutian are only a few sky immortals. I'd like to see who dares stop me. Who can stop me? Divine light surged, and a dazzling golden path surrounded by holy light spread out from the void, extending all the way to Yu Yutian. On this sacred golden path, a sacred and splendid chariot, pulled by 9 divine unicorns, was constantly advancing. On the sacred chariot, a group of fairies danced gracefully, and a melodious hymn drifted out. A group of goddesses with pure white wings flew in front of the chariot with flower baskets in their hands, sprinkling sacred and beautiful petals from the baskets. Golden light opened up the path, and fresh flowers sprinkled down the path. It was sacred, majestic, and extremely luxurious. Divine Tao cultivators are really good at showing off. Liu couldn't help but sigh in admiration as he looked up at the sky and saw the sacred and luxurious atmosphere. When it comes to posturing, this kind of divine cultivator who specializes in fooling their followers should be the most professional. Master, Tao Ancestor Nirvana's lackey is about to arrive at Yu Yutian. Do you need me to send him away? At this time, knowing that Liu, Tao Ancestor Black-Yellow, was studying the great Tao, the old peacock hurriedly asked Liu through the token. He's just an ant. There's no need to pay attention to him. Liu smiled and waved his hand, not caring about this God King at all. Yes, the God King was just an ant in front of the old peacock, let alone Tao Ancestor Black-Yellow, who had attained eternity. After hearing Liu's words, the old peacock ignored the God King. Boom! In the void, a brilliant golden great Tao swept over from afar and directly touched Yu Yutian's boundary. This is a half-step golden immortal? A half-step golden immortal who cultivates the divine Tao? Emperor Yama, who had just killed the Rakshasa goddess and was feeling smug, suddenly saw this scene and was scared silly. A half-step golden immortal was already in contact with the great Tao. In front of such a person, celestial immortals were not much stronger than ants. Killing a foreign god who had violated the boundary had caused such a big problem? It's over. I'm dead for sure now. The Yama Emperor was so scared that his entire body was trembling. Holy! 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 Vast and mighty holy light swept over, and a sacred and gorgeous chariot, pulled by 9 holy unicorns, slowly drove over. Endless divine radiance illuminated heaven and earth, and a melodious hymn spread through the void. In the sky full of flowers, the sacred and majestic God King, who was sitting on the chariot, slowly raised his head, and an awe-inspiring divine aura spread out. You gods of the netherworld, how dare you interfere with my affairs? You're courting death. I'm merciful and will give you a way out. Kowtow. Submit. Become this emperor's servant. This is your only choice. Heaven and earth echoed with his words. Endless divine radiance surged in the void, and the divine aura was awe-inspiring and unparalleled. The half-step golden immortal realm had already left his mark on the great Tao. Although he had not reached the level of, I am the great Tao, he could already draw upon the power of the great Tao. As the God King spoke, the endless pressure of the postnatal enslavement great Tao pressed down on the gods of the netherworld on the boundary. With the God King's cultivation, it would only take an instant for these gods of the netherworld to be enslaved by him and become his slaves. However, Big Boss Li's methods were not something ordinary people could imagine. At this moment, the trembling Yama Emperor suddenly discovered a brilliant light erupting from the seal of samsara. A boundless and unimaginably tyrannical power was suddenly added to his body. Boom! The Emperor Yenluo only felt a violent explosion in his mind, and in an instant, his divine soul and strength increased infinitely. 6 brilliant and incomparably mysterious light wheels slowly rotated in his divine soul. At this moment, the Emperor Yenluo only felt that all things in the world, all living beings, and the reincarnation cycle of all things were under his control. The 6 paths of samsara. This is the 6 paths of samsara. This is the real 6 paths of samsara. The Emperor Yenluo's courage was boosted when he felt this incomparably vast power. So what if you're a half-step golden immortal? This is the power of the great Tao. This is the true power of the 6 paths of samsara. Even if you're a half-step golden immortal, you still can't escape the control of the samsara of samsara. As for who was behind this, there was no doubt that the Book of Life and Death was in charge of the 6 paths of samsara. The person behind this must be the Tao ancestor of life and death. You're thinking too much. Liu shook his head with a smile. This is just an experiment that my true body came up with by combining Emperor Zhuoqiu's samsara Tao with the heavenly technique of the 6 paths of samsara from Huang's celestial emperor's world, and Limo's dream path samsara. As for whether it's a trap or not, that's a detail. Don't worry about it. Boom! A brilliant divine light suddenly burst out of the Emperor Yenluo's body, and 6 incomparably mysterious light wheels appeared in the void, the power of the samsara shaking heaven and earth. Enter the samsara and reincarnate into the animal path. The light of the 6 paths of samsara flashed, and a light wheel inscribed with countless images of beasts spun in front of the Emperor Yenluo. Following the Emperor Yenluo's judgment, the light wheel of the animal path suddenly burst out with a beam of light that landed on the Emperor Yenluo. Even with the strength of a half-step golden immortal, the Emperor Yenluo couldn't resist this light at all. He couldn't even dodge and was hit just like that. This was the great Tao's law. The Emperor Yenluo screamed and fell off the sacred chariot. He rolled on the ground and suddenly turned into a white horse. A mare. Being sent into the animal path by the 6 paths of samsara was a true beast. The Emperor Yenluo became an ordinary mare with no magic power at all. In the eyes of the 9 unicorns pulling the chariot, it was as if a sister Lin had fallen from the sky. How could they miss such a good opportunity? And so, the scene was so miserable that they couldn't bear to look at it directly. Similarly, it was indescribable. I recommend a book by a friend, The Destroyer of Unhappy Plots. It's an infinite flow of imagination. You're an experienced driver, so remember to fasten your seatbelt. Chapter 1073. What had happened to the Divine Emperor? None of the 9 unicorns were ordinary beasts, but chaos beasts with innate divine abilities. The 9 unicorns took turns ravaging him, and he was already dead. As for how he died, Emperor Yama's response was that it was too tragic, and he couldn't bear to say it. Henceforth, all cultivators below the golden immortal Tao ancestor level in the heavenly planes would eat their mounts, regardless of whether they were male or female. As for why, no one said anything. 6 paths of reincarnation? The Book of Life and Death. When Emperor Yama sent the Divine Emperor into the animal path with a single blow, the present golden immortals all jumped up in shock. The Book of Life and Death has appeared? Didn't he hide for countless years, planning to shed his true form and reincarnate? Has he not reincarnated yet? Or has he already reincarnated and merged with the grand Tao of life and death again? At this moment, all the golden immortals who'd been eyeing the grand Tao of life and death began to have their own ideas. Bastard! Who's tricking me? Who's tricking me? An exasperated roar rang out from an inexplicable space in the depths of the netherworld realm. I've been hiding for countless years to trick Tao ancestor Nirvana and steal his Tao of Nirvana. Now that I've done this, they'll definitely think it's me. They'll definitely guess that I've reincarnated and merged with the Tao again. Bastard! It really isn't me. I really didn't do it. Bearing the blame that would never be cleared, the Tao ancestor of life and death was seething with anger. Who's the one behind this? Even if I saw the power of the 6 paths of reincarnation, I'd think it was me. If it weren't for the fact that it's impossible for there to be 2 Tao ancestors of life and death in this world, I would have thought he was one of them. The Tao of life and death governed the postnatal Taos of life and death, as well as the 6 paths of reincarnation. Apart from someone who's merged with the Tao of death, no one else has merged with the other postnatal Tao. That's why there's no such thing as several postnatal Tao ancestors working together to create reincarnation. Who is it? Tao ancestor Great Void? Did he use the Tao of illusions to create reality? His suspicions, the Tao ancestor of life and death quieted down, silently planning to find the best plan in this chaotic situation. The Book of Life and Death? What is he planning? In the Nirvana major world, Tao ancestor Nirvana sat by the lotus pond, frowning as he looked in the direction of the 9 underworld major world. As for the God King's death, Tao ancestor Nirvana didn't even care about someone like him who came to Bootlick. As long as he was willing, he could take in hundreds of such half-step gold immortals who cultivated the postnatal Tao. Is the Book of Life and Death plotting against me? My Nirvana Great Tao just happens to be the opposite of his Samsara Great Tao. It made sense for her to have designs on me. But if he wanted to do something, why did he expose himself? For the sake of a god emperor, exposing his many years of scheming was simply too brainless. If it wasn't for the Nirvana Grand Tao, then what was he planning to do? For a time, Tao ancestor Nirvana's head hurt from thinking, but he couldn't find any clues. All of the golden immortals and Tao fathers in the heavenly planes who were concerned about this matter felt their heads hurt, unable to make heads or tails of it. This is just an experiment of mine to test my understanding of the samsara Tao of life and death. It's not targeted at a third party, so please don't read too much into it. Li Yu's clone shrugged and took a step forward, arriving in Western Wilderness in an instant. This was a desert on the outskirts of Western Wilderness. In the great battle of ancient golden immortals, Taoist Yujing, who had attained the connate great Tao of slaughter, had fought against Taoist Star River, who had attained the Tao of holy virtue. Taoist Yujing had even slain Taoist Star River's good friend, Taisher Fiend Lord. A trace of connate slaughter chi had spread over, causing the vast land to be barren and devoid of life. Therefore, in the depths of Western Wilderness, where the great battle of the 3 golden immortals had ended, Taoist Yujing's connate slaughter sword formation and immortal slaying sword formation were left behind. Apart from Taoist Yujing's slaughter sword formation, there was also Taisher Fiend Lord's great Tao inheritance treasure, Taisher Fiend token, and Taoist Stariver's sword of holy virtue. The grand beginning great Tao of the grand beginning demon lords returned to primordial with neither good nor evil, and the Star River Deofather's Tao of saintly virtue are the grand beginning and saintly virtue great Taos of this world. As for Taoist Yujing's immortal slaying sword formation, Li Yu raised his eyes to look beyond the void and shook his head again. Tong Tian, this isn't your doing, I don't believe it. This is clearly your intention to let the immortal slaying sword formation achieve eternity in this world. Yujing must be the original spirit of the immortal slaying sword formation. Of course, this matter had nothing to do with Li Yu. Li Yu casually stepped into the West Wasteland. The endless energy storms and space cracks didn't affect him at all. Even though it was only a celestial immortal clone, Li Yu's clone was already able to transfer some power from his main body. A ray of light rushed out from the top of his head, with Taiji Yin and Yang in the middle, the 5 elements in the middle, and the 8 trigrams in the periphery. This was the foundation of Li Yu's great Tao, the Taiji 8 trigrams diagram. With the addition of some insights from this world, this Taiji 8 trigrams diagram had new things. The 8 trigrams diagram circulated, and the power of destiny surged. Liu immediately found a route that was least dangerous to him. Then, the 5 elements separated, decomposing all energy and matter. The Taiji yin and yang fish swam, and the origin of order controlled everything. Even if he did not use his main body's power, he could easily step into the depths of Western wilderness. Galaxy Mansion? There's only one space waymark, but the mansion is not here? Then I can only let my main body take it. Sitting in the chaotic wilderness, Liu's main body, who was studying the evolution of heaven and earth, stretched out his hand and grabbed a sword of Saint Virtue from the void. With a glance, the path of Saint Virtue was in his eyes. I've already created the path of Saint Virtue for the Emperor of Zhongzhou. Why do I still need this thing? After analyzing it, he found that the path of Saint Virtue was essentially the same as the art of moderation that he had created. Then, he casually threw the Galaxy Saint Virtue sword back. All right. Spirit and soul were one, so naturally, the clone also knew what the main body did. Clone Liu shook his head and walked to the next place. Taisher Demon Lords, return to the beginning without good or evil. I still know how to study it. Liu walked to a dilapidated void. Amidst the broken tiles and debris, Liu found the Taisher Demonic Order. A third Blight Tribulation spiritual treasure was not destroyed by Taoist Yujing's sword. He probably thinks that you're not worth it, right? Reaching out his hand, the Taisher Demon token fell into the hands of Clone Liu. Buzz, an extremely evil demonic aura instantly erupted. The heart demon eroded the heart, and the blood demon devoured the body. Darkness, confusion, death, curse, blood, terror. Endless demonic aura pressed down on Clone Liu. Clone Liu had only just entered the realm of celestial being. Compared to the Taisher demon token that had passed the third Blight Tribulation, it was countless times worse. It seemed very dangerous. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.